Chapter 699. Mr. Lu? Amen, who was carrying a basket of breakfast, called out nervously when she saw Lu Cheng's odd expression. Lu Cheng snapped out of it and put down his phone. He squeezed out a smile. Just put it down. Go get what you want. Amen nodded with a smile and left. Her professional credo was to never ask about things she shouldn't. Lu Cheng picked up a quicksand bun and took a bite out of it. Just as he was about to flip through the pages with one hand to look at the comments below the headlines, he saw Empress Luo, Ning Zidong, enter energetically in her white sportswear with a towel around her neck. You just started eating? Ning Zidong greeted him with a smile. Then she remembered something and said, Dragon King will only be back next week for recovery training. We'll still have to rely on you for the second round. Dragon King will only be back after some time? Lu Cheng heaved a sigh of relief. He subconsciously rubbed the corner of his mouth that was still hurting. Sister Ning, I'm fine. Really? You're going north to Zhaofeng to challenge Daxing Temple? Ning Zidong replied with a half-smile. She pulled a chair over and sat down. Damn, I forgot that Daxing Temple is our next opponent, and it's their home ground. Lu Cheng was stunned for a few seconds. He pretended to be calm and said, I've been looking forward to it for a long time. Daxing Temple was a powerful force that could compete for the title of world number 1. Although they were slightly inferior to Longhu Club and Shangqing Sect, they were not to be underestimated. Abbot Divine Monk Faiyuan was from the same generation as his master. He was 57 years old and practiced silent meditation. He had mastered thought steal and had won 2 titles in the past. Wisdom King Ji Hai was the most outstanding representative of the new generation of martial artists. He was not even 28 years old and had already won the Super Class and King titles. He was expected to start his own era. Living Buddha Sher Shan had mastered the mystery of reincarnation and was the toughest first pin fighter to deal with. This was basically the main lineup of 2 Super Class first pin players. Back then, the combination of a Dragon King, Empress Luo, and Optimus Prime was slightly better than them. However, after Long Zhen left, regardless of whether it was Coach Lu Yan or himself, they were still lacking by a little. Both sides were considered to be on the same level. Now that Dragon King was recuperating and the opponent was on their home ground, the difficulty was imaginable. You have a good attitude. Ning Zidong took a normal bowl of noodles from her assistant and chuckled. When the time comes, you can do whatever you want. After all, this isn't our home ground. You can tear it apart and destroy it however you want. How long would this joke last? Lu Cheng complained in his heart and deliberately changed the topic. Sister Ning, why are you eating such a small bowl of noodles? The size of a normal person's rice bowl isn't even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. There are still a few bowls left. Ning Zidong ate a lot of noodles without making any noise. She pointed at her assistant, who was waiting in front of the noodle counter. Why don't we do it together? How convenient it is to use that kind of basin. Lu Cheng casually added. Ning Zidong rolled her eyes at him. The noodles won't taste good if they're left out for too long. Besides, do you think I'm the kind of person who eats from a big bowl? Image, do you understand? Image. I'm a person who eats with a big basin. Lu Cheng was speechless for a moment. Zhaofeng City, Bodhi Mountain, Daxing Temple. The receptionist monk, Ji Jing, stepped into the abbot's meditation hall. He put his palms together and bowed to the divine monk, Fa Yuan, who was sitting on a futon. Abbot, I have something to report. Fa Yuan was wearing a yellow monk robe and a red kasaya. He looked haggard. The corners of his eyes, mouth, and nose were sagging. However, there weren't any wrinkles on his face. His eyes were kind and calm, deep and profound. Everyone who looked at him could only see their own reflection. As soon as Ji Jing finished speaking, he reached out and accurately pulled out a piece of paper from a stack of paper plates and held it horizontally in front of his chest. Written on it were 2 large black words and a question mark that stretched to its limits. What's the matter? Ji Jing was already used to this pattern. After all, his abbot practiced silent Zen. He deliberated over his words and said, "Abbot, the reporters who came today strongly requested to interview you. They have a direct line to Haizili. What's wrong with those people? Don't they know what silent Zen is?" Fa Yuan didn't look surprised at all. It was as if he already knew. His eyes were filled with compassion. He took a blank plate and wrote a few words. "Let Shi Shan and Ji Hai go. I still have homework to do." "Yes, Abbot. I'll go find Ji Hai and Junior Shi Shan immediately." Ji Jing looked at it carefully and put his palms together. Fa Yuan smiled slightly and pulled out another plate from the stack of plates. On it was written, "I want supper, I want supper, I want supper." Ji Jing's eyes widened as he stood there in a daze. Fa Yuan's eyebrows relaxed as if he understood something. He quickly threw the plate away and pulled out another one. On it was written, "I asked Shi Shan to help me organize it." No wonder, the abbot wrote this in advance. He understood Junior Shi Shan's nature very well. Ji Jing suddenly understood. Fa Yuan nodded slightly and pulled out a new plate from the original position. "Good, good." The words were slightly ugly, like the scribbles of a child. It was a different style from before. "Then I'll take my leave first." Ji Jing held back his laughter and bowed. Fa Yuan picked up the plate on the top and wrote in a strict and majestic manner, "Namo Amitabha." After Ji Jing left the meditation room and closed the door, Fa Yuan hurriedly waved his sleeve and rolled up the plates, letting them fall down and show their contents. With a glance, he saw the printed funny emoji and the emoji underscore. His lips quivered a few times and almost opened. After leaving the abbot's meditation room, Ji Jing looked at the sky and walked to the kitchen. Sure enough, he saw the fat and tall, living Buddha, Shi Shan, staring into the kitchen, swallowing his saliva as if he couldn't wait any longer. "Junior Shi Shan, the abbot has orders for you," Ji Jing said with a smile. "What is it?" Shi Shan didn't turn his head. "He wants you to accept an interview." "Oh right, help me inform Junior Ji Hai." Ji Jing went straight to the point. "I'm not free." Shi Shan smelled the fragrance of the steamed buns and waved his hand. Ji Jing put his hands behind his back and walked 2 steps. He laughed and said, "This time, the reporter has a big background. We have prepared a lot of tea, fruits and snacks for him. They are all the best." "Where?" Shi Shan suddenly turned around. "Clear Heart Courtyard." Ji Jing held back his laughter. They wanted to interview the abbot first. What kind of people are they? Don't they know that the abbot practices silent meditation? "Oh right, Junior Shi Shan, why do you have to practice silent meditation when you practice thought steal?" "Huh, of course, you don't count. You are the predecessor of the predecessor." Shi Shan's chubby and slightly swollen face showed a bit of emotion as he said, "There are gains and losses. Since he has mastered thought steal, it's better to practice silent meditation." "Why?" Ji Jing was curious. Whether it was the abbot or Shi Shan, they had never used thought steal in front of their fellow disciples. "You really want to know?" Shi Shan asked with a strange expression. "Yes." Ji Jing quickly nodded. Shi Shan's voice became low and deep as he said, "Of course I want to know. Why wouldn't I dare? What is this glutton trying to do?" Ji Jing's expression changed and he hurriedly waved his hand and said, I didn't think so." Shi Shan's mouth twitched slightly as he continued, "Amitabha, he can really hear what I'm thinking. How can this be? I've secretly scolded him so many times, saying that he doesn't look like a living Buddha at all." Ji Jing opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end, he couldn't open his mouth. Shi Shan kindly helped him to add on, "I'll scram myself." Before he finished his sentence, Ji Jing lifted his sleeve, covered his face, and hurriedly left. "Look, at this time, don't you wish that I had practiced silent meditation?" Looking at Ji Jing's back, Shi Shan shook his head and laughed. He wasn't angry at all that Ji Jing often slandered him in his heart. He shook his monk robe and went to the Bodhi courtyard. Just as he entered, he saw Wisdom King Zhi standing under two Bodhi trees. This famous young monk wore a white monk robe and had a handsome baby face. He often had a smile on his face, giving off a cheerful and friendly feeling. At this moment, he was looking at the top of the Bodhi trees, deep in thought. No one knew what he was thinking about. Sher Shan didn't try to listen to what he was thinking. This wasn't only because of self-restraint, but also because of the other party's spiritual cultivation. When he first mastered thought steal, he had once listened to Senior Zhi's thoughts. He realized that Senior Zhi was a person with a unified mind. When he was cultivating, he would cultivate. When he was eating, he would eat. There were almost no distracting thoughts. Of course, there were times when he thought a lot, such as now. However, due to his strong spiritual cultivation, he could only hear the general idea and lacked the details. Sensing Sher Shan's arrival, Zhi retracted his gaze and turned his head. He revealed a smile that was as bright as the sun. Just now, I suddenly felt a sense of disgust towards myself. Disgust what? Sher Shan played along and asked. I can see through everything, but I still care about fame. I feel ashamed. Zhi shook his head and laughed, as though he was talking about someone else. Since I'm already in it, why not experience it to the fullest? Sher Shan replied sharply. Why? Zhi frowned. Disgust. If you don't stand, how can you disgust? Sher Shan said casually. He then said, the abbot wants us to go to the Clear Heart courtyard for an interview. Zhi nodded and followed Sher Shan to the Clear Heart courtyard. After the interview, they went to the abbot's meditation room to report what had happened. You do it. It's more convenient, Zhi smiled and said to Sher Shan. All right. Sher Shan walked to the divine monk, Fa Yuan, and sat down on a cushion. The meditation room was silent. After a few minutes of staring at each other, Sher Shan patted his robe and stood up. He broke the silence and said to Zhi, I'm done reporting. And I was taught a lesson. Chapter 700. Friday night, on the streets of Zhaofeng. Lu Qing controlled his facial muscles to change slightly as he walked among the bustling passers-by. It was as though he was a different person, and no one could see through his disguise. This was a real disguise technique completed by the realm of all-seeing God. Although he couldn't transform into someone else due to the bone structure, he could clearly distinguish himself. This isn't a provincial capital or a big city, but it's pretty lively here. Lu Qing muttered to himself. He looked around, occasionally taking out his phone to take pictures and share them with his wife, who had just arrived at the classroom. In order to prepare for the upcoming battle, the Longhu Club had arrived in Zhaofeng City 2 days earlier than usual. This gave them ample time to adjust their condition. After dinner, Lu Qing pondered over the corresponding video and decided to relax. He decided to take a stroll and become an incompetent traveler. Sigh, after all, I'm not a martial arts fanatic like Guojie. I still need to relax. He silently mocked himself. To his surprise, he found martial arts centers everywhere on the streets of Zhaofeng. There were even small advertisements on the telephone poles that read, if you want to learn martial arts, go to a certain school. They were on par with the old Chinese doctor's treatment of psoriasis and body odor. Lu Qing was stunned for a few seconds. He recalled watching an interview program where Zhaofeng was jokingly referred to as the city of martial arts centers. Daxing Temple's reputation spread far and wide. There were many who wanted to learn martial arts from them, but only a small portion of them were chosen. The rest went to Shangqing Sect, Shushan Study, Longhu Club, and other martial arts centers to try their luck. Some stayed in the area to see if there were any other avenues. There were also many disciples who left Daxing Temple every year. They either returned to their hometowns, went to the big cities, or found business opportunities and stayed in Zhaofeng. They opened martial arts schools and centers, attracting large numbers of students in the name of orthodox disciples. As the scale of the martial arts school grew, the number of imitators increased as well. In order to compete with the state-led martial arts school system, the Daxing Temple tacitly approved of this practice. If there were any well-prepared talents in Zhaofeng's martial arts school, then based on the relationship between the lay disciples and the school, they would undoubtedly recommend them to the Daxing Temple. Even if they didn't like each other in the end, it was inevitable that there would be some lingering feelings between the two sides. In Jianghu, one more favor meant one more guarantee. After years of development, the number of martial arts schools and dojos in Zhaofeng City was astounding. Many students from other cities, as well as their study companions, had spurred the local real estate market, rental market, retail and wholesale, vegetable farming, livestock breeding, security personnel training, film and television companies, and other industries. They had contributed a lot to the city's GDP and tax revenue. Initially, Zhaofeng City's government was against such a change. They felt that it was against the country's policy, but they slowly turned a blind eye to it. They were even happy to see it happen. There were quite a few dojos in Huahai, Huacheng, Gaofen, and Mosheng, but they were still considered small businesses. In Zhaofeng, however, it was a mainstay industry. Interesting. Different cities have different characteristics. Lu Qing glanced around and saw signs such as Dabi Martial Arts School, Daisai Martial Arts School, Dague Martial Arts School, Dague Martial Arts School, Dague Martial Arts School, Dague Martial Arts School, and Lower House of Daxing Temple. He found that their business was pretty good. They trained students during the day and worked out at night. Crack. 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 He took a few photos and was about to send them to Yan Zhika when he saw a few city management officers approaching. They stretched out their hands and said sternly, "Delete the photos from just now." What's going on? Lu Cheng was confused. His eyes were blank. He lowered his head and browsed through the photos. In the corner of one of the photos, he saw a city management officer punishing a street vendor. This is sputtering damage. They're afraid I'll post on Weibo and make a big news story. Lu Qing laughed. Why am I so confused with old ladies with red armbands and city management officers? They don't want to delete my photos, they want to find me. The corner of his mouth twitched. Before the city management officer could say anything, he backed up and disappeared into the sea of people. The city management officers were stunned at first, but they quickly chased after him. Back in the day, I was called flying on grass in the martial arts center, said one of them excitedly. After a few steps, he suddenly stopped. He had completely lost track of Lu Qing in the sea of people. Forget it, we didn't do anything. His companion waved his hand and turned back. That guy must be an outstanding disciple from some martial arts center. That movement technique, TSK, I almost thought he disappeared into thin air. In Zhaofeng, the people selling barbecued skewers on the streets were all martial artists. They might even know things like iron sand palm or iron head. They were already used to it. At the intersection in the distance, Lu Qing sensed that they didn't chase after him. He couldn't help but smile. He thought to himself, luckily I ran faster than the Western reporters. He wasn't affected by the previous situation. If he took it seriously, he would have lost. I was almost fine again. Lu Qing sent a message to Yan Zhika, exaggerating. Why did I say, again? Yan Zhika had just finished her class. She asked him with an emoji, what bad things did you do again? Did you break someone's floor tile? Did you break a pitiful tree? Did you break a bicycle's chain? Why do you make it sound like I'm a destructive maniac? All I did was take a few photos. Look. Lu Qing explained what had just happened and laughed with Ku for a while. When Yan Zhika returned to her studies, he continued to walk aimlessly. Suddenly, he saw a noodle shop that was very crowded. There were so many customers that they almost blocked the walkway. There were even people holding bowls and squatting by the roadside to eat. There were quite a few of them. Looks delicious. Lu Qing walked over excitedly. He checked the reviews on the website and found that this shop was indeed famous. Those who had eaten there couldn't stop praising it. Just as he was about to squeeze in to order, he suddenly saw a customer squatting by the roadside. He looked familiar. When he looked over, he was shocked. *CK, this isn't Coach Lu. Although he had also distorted his facial muscles and changed his appearance, that serious feeling, that arrogant temperament that was not pleasing to the eyes, was still so distinct and outstanding. He's actually squatting by the roadside to eat noodles? It's hard to imagine that Coach Lu would do something like this. Sensing someone's gaze, Lu Yen turned around abruptly and saw Lu Cheng. His face darkened. He turned his head and looked at the big bowl as if to say, "You've got the wrong person. The situation is a little awkward." Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He followed the line to the cashier and paid first before waiting for his food. When he received the local specialty noodles, he was about to squat beside Lu Yen and pretend that they were the same. However, he realized that Coach Lu was nowhere to be found. All that was left was a pair of chopsticks and a clean bowl waiting for the waiter to take it away. I can almost hear Coach Lu roaring, "Who's the same as you?" Lu Cheng laughed self-deprecatingly. He squatted down and looked across while sucking on the noodles. Opposite was a row of shops selling Buddhist items. There were so-called consecrated Buddha statues, all kinds of prayer beads, Dharma weapons, and Buddhist scriptures. This was also the specialty of Xiaofeng. The noodles are really good. Lu Cheng praised in his heart. Too bad I didn't meet the living Buddha. Otherwise, I could have taken revenge for the treat last time, Daxing Temple, in a certain meditation room. Shi Shan rubbed his stomach and looked out the window. His mind was already wandering to the various snack stalls. In the end, there was only one reason that stopped him. No money. As one of the higher-ups of Daxing Temple, he responded to the abbot's call to live a simple and honest life. He didn't receive a salary. After all, his basic necessities were taken care of by the temple. As a monk, he had no other needs. This was also the reason why he liked to participate in professional matches and title matches. The prize money was always in his hands. However, he only kept a small portion of the prize money. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so short of money. Sighing, Shi Shan rubbed the "thank you" letter in front of him. It was a gift he received for donating to needy children. I expected to last until next month. Who knew that I would be so greedy during the new year? He shook his head and laughed. He walked out of the room and knocked on Wisdom King Ji Hai's door. He had no qualms about borrowing money. Knock, knock, knock. Ji Hai walked out after the rhythmic knocks. Shi Shan was about to open his mouth when his gaze froze. Ji Hai was holding a similar thank you letter. "What's the matter?" asked Ji Hai. Nothing. Shi Shan chuckled and turned to leave. Go back to sleep, go back to sleep. A hidden meaning in his words. As expected of the reincarnated living Buddha, Ji Hai looked at Shi Shan's back with a serious expression, pondering the deep meaning of Zen. On Sunday afternoon, the Longhu Club members stepped onto the stone steps leading to Daxing Temple. Chapter 701. Daxing Temple's arena was a green stone square that was more than 300 meters in length and width. Around the square were 4 ancient pagodas. Some were made of wood, while others were made of stone. All of them exuded a peaceful, compassionate, and peaceful aura. They converged at the center and glowed brightly. It was as if the Buddhist kingdom had descended. It even calmed the hearts and minds of the spectators on the pagodas further away. One could imagine how much of an impact a martial artist's heart and mind would be when they stepped into this area. This was the home field advantage of Daxing Temple. Halfway up each of the 4 pagodas, there was a monk in a red kasaya sitting cross-legged on the glazed tiles. Some were old, some were middle-aged, some looked like withered trees, some had rosy cheeks, some were holding demon-subduing rings, and some were carrying long black whips. They were all eminent monks of Daxing Temple's Bodhi Yard. They were here to prevent the aftermath of battle or derailed fireballs from damaging the pagodas. Inside the pagodas were relics of past masters. Because of this, Daxing Temple didn't have to worry about the home field. No matter how damaged the green stone square was, it was still within the scope of repair. Fighting in such a place feels disrespectful to the remains of the ancestors. What is Daxing Temple thinking? Lu Qing stood by the window of the Zen hall that was used as the away team's changing room. He looked at the pure land of the Buddhist kingdom. Ning Zitong's hair was tied up, revealing her slender neck without any wrinkles. She chuckled. Everything is empty. How can you be a monk if you care about this? Besides, isn't it a tradition for monks to borrow the relics of their ancestors? That's true. Lu Qing retracted his gaze and took out his phone. Looks like I'm just a layman. I'm not that enlightened. At this moment, in the simple home team's changing room, the receptionist monk, Ji Jing, knocked on the door and entered. He put his palms together and bowed. Abbot, the supervisor is rushing for the list of fighters. Due to the drone filming along the way, the haggard Faiyuan didn't wear his paper tags to maintain his image as a divine monk. However, this didn't affect his communication with others. Shi Shan smiled and sat cross-legged across from him. They were less than 5 meters apart. After another round of staring at each other in silence, Shi Shan stood up and said, "That's right. Let's leave it to fate today." Leave it to fate. There's a deep meaning behind this. Wisdom King, Ji Hai, pondered seriously. He had another nickname on the internet, Elder Tang, which meant that he was handsome and dumb, like Tang Sanzang. He was deeply loved by fairies, and they couldn't wait to swallow him. Shi Shan glanced at him and sighed helplessly. Sigh, it seems like I'm the only normal physical invulnerability expert in Daxing Temple. He opened it and saw the 2 words, Fa Yuan. He quickly chanted the name of Buddha in a low voice. With that, Daxing Temple's order of appearance was decided. Divine Monk Fa Yuan, Supreme Class Ji Hai, and Living Buddha Shi Shan. Ji Hai currently had the title of Supreme Class, so he could use it when he submitted the name list. The substitutes were Fire Dragon Wang Xiaoshuang and the others. In the away team's changing room, Lu Yen finished changing. He looked around and said, "It's undeniable that without Optimus Prime and Dragon King, our strength is slightly weaker than Daxing Temple's. Since we're going to be the weak against the strong, we have to act as if we're the weak against the strong." His words sounded like a rational analysis, but at the same time, he was trying to provoke Lu Cheng. Without waiting for him to speak, he stared into Lu Cheng's eyes and said, "If you're going to be the weak against the strong, how would you fight?" Lu Cheng deliberated for a dozen seconds and said, "If you don't know your opponent well enough, you'll definitely roam around the battle. You'll exhaust your opponent while observing and waiting. Once there's an opportunity, you'll grab hold of it and try for a combo. If that doesn't work, you'll quickly widen the distance and repeat the process. That's basically the theory. Now, let's apply it to the overall situation." Lu Yen nodded slightly. The 3 physical invulnerability experts of Daxing Temple aren't that different from each other. Any order of appearance is possible. We'll use the fact that we don't know our opponent well enough to start with a roaming battle. We'll exhaust as many as we can. Empress Luo, you'll be in charge of this. No problem, replied Ning Zitong with a smile. After the roaming battle, we'll seize the opportunity to burst out. I'm not as good as you in this aspect. Lu Yen looked at Lu Cheng and admitted frankly. As for the final response to different situations, I've been around for 20 to 30 years. I'm more experienced than you. Coach, are you trying to say that you're old but strong? Lu Cheng laughed in his heart and made a sarcastic remark. On the surface, he nodded solemnly. All right. After the arrangements were made and the name list was handed in, there were still 20 minutes before the start of the match. They were either exercising, recuperating, or seeking support from afar. Lu Cheng put away his phone with a satisfied look. Just as he was about to close his eyes and rest, he heard Guojia whisper, "If you were to fight against Divine Monk Fa Yuan, Supreme Class Ji Hai, and Living Buddha Shi Shan, what would you do during the conversation time? What's the difference between them?" When did the martial arts fanatic become so talkative? Lu Qing turned his head in surprise and saw Guojia looking out of the window. Her mind was in a whirl. She seemed to be imagining how she would fight against Fa Yuan, Ji Hai, and Shi Shan because she couldn't go on stage. Lu Qing pondered for a moment before replying, I've never fought Divine Monk Fa Yuan and Wisdom King before, so I don't know much about them. If I were to meet Living Buddha, during the conversation time, I'd call out the names of dishes like steamed lamb, steamed bear's paw, steamed deer tail, roasted duck, roasted chicken, roasted goose. That guy was obviously a foodie. He used to be a meat eater, but now he was forced to be a vegetarian. Calling out the names of dishes would hit him right where it hurt. Just as Lu Qing was feeling smug about his flash of inspiration, Guojia turned to him and asked curiously, Did you learn crosstalk in the past? Why else would he call out the names of dishes so smoothly? Lu Qing was dumbfounded. After a long while, he replied, I've always liked to listen to crosstalk. In the middle of the night in Connecticut, Yenjika saw that the time for the match was almost up and the seconds kept ticking. She turned on her computer and searched for the information. Report to calm down. In a dormitory of Songqing University. He pushed open the door and saw Yan Shaoling applying facial cream. Box, come and comfort me. I told them before that I've been using my facial cream super fast lately because I'm too hardworking. They laughed at me for having a big face, sob. Yan Shaoling deliberately exaggerated with her childish voice. He glanced at her and said, It's not a big face, it's a fat face. You've put on a lot of weight recently. Bro, that hurts. Yan Shaoling was dumbfounded. That's not the point. The point is, why did you put on your facial cream at 2 or 3 in the afternoon? He was puzzled. Yan Shaoling deliberately sighed and said, I was too nervous last night and couldn't sleep until 6 or 7 in the morning. I was forced to eat lunch by Jin at noon. My skin is not in good condition and I'm very sleepy. I thought I'd put on a facial mask, put on some cream, eat something, and then sleep directly until tomorrow morning. What are you nervous about? He asked curiously. Isn't it because Senior is finally facing the most outstanding martial artist of this generation, the Wisdom King, Ji Hai? I can't help but feel a little nervous. Yan Shaoling suddenly jumped up and said, Competition, the competition in the afternoon. I forgot about the competition in the afternoon. I forgot about it in my sleep. He sighed helplessly and muttered to herself as she watched her hurriedly look for a computer and search for a live streaming website, knocking over books and bumping her head from time to time. She was in so much pain that tears welled up in her eyes. I forgot about it too. One is marked by the company one keeps. At 3:10 in the afternoon, the shadow of the pagoda on the limestone square began to elongate and was covered in a layer of gold. The referee walked to the center and waved to the changing rooms on both sides to signal the start of the competition. It's Divine Monk Fa Yuan. Ning Zitong glanced at the name list and pushed open the door with a smile. Why does Sister Ning look so happy and excited? Lu Qing muttered to himself. Beside him, Lu Yan's mouth twitched slightly as he explained, This is her hobby. This is one of her hobbies. She always tries to break Divine Monk Fa Yuan's vow of silence during conversation. Why does she sound like a little girl? Lu Qing found it funny. But then again, after he mastered thought steal, Divine Monk Fa Yuan's silent meditation should have been perfected as well. Did something go wrong? Chapter 702. Ning Zitong stood next to the referee. She looked at the divine monk, Fa Yuan, who was wearing a red kasaya, walking toward her slowly. She was feeling nostalgic and amused. Duels like this always reminded her of the time when she had just reached physical invulnerability. Back then, Fa Yuan wasn't the abbot of Daxing Temple yet, but he had been practicing silent meditation for many years. She still had the mentality of a young girl and tried to provoke him to speak. Just as she was about to succeed, the referee announced the start of the duel, leaving her with regrets. Thus, the first attempt, the second attempt, the third attempt. Time passed just like that, hastening one's aging. Unknowingly, the girl with a radiant face and peerless beauty was already middle-aged, and she was speeding along the road of 50 years. Perhaps only this hobby that she had persisted for so many years could allow her to temporarily regain that feeling of a young girl, even if she had always failed and never succeeded. I'm not trying to provoke him to speak, I'm talking about my youth. Ning Zitong sighed to herself. She saw the haggard Fayuan stop at the designated spot, about 30 meters away from her. At such a distance, she wasn't afraid that he could hear her thoughts through telepathy. According to the experience of many seniors and fellow practitioners, it could be determined that the effective range of telepathy wouldn't exceed a radius of 10 meters, or even smaller. At this moment, the referee approved the time, raised his right hand, and announced, "Duel time begins." Ning Zitong looked like she had been waiting for a long time. She couldn't wait and said, "Master Abbot, long time no see." As soon as she said this, the surrounding audience and onlookers in front of the screen started to mock her. Not to mention the previous duel between Longhu Club and Daxing Temple, or the recent title match. You met Divine Monk Fayuan at the celebratory banquet of the previous top professional league competition. It hasn't even been 2 months. Are you saying this on purpose to get Divine Monk Fayuan to refute you? We won't fall for such tricks. Fa Yuan lowered his head. His divine light was restrained, and his expression was wooden. He only nodded his head slightly. Ning Zitong didn't care and continued, "Grandmaster Abbot, I have a doubt that has been in my heart for a while. I hope you can give me some pointers. I've been thinking about it. Buddhists practice silent meditation in order to reduce verbal karma and karma. If a divine monk who practices silent meditation happens to know a secret, and if he quickly tells it to the world, thousands of lives can be saved, would he choose to open his mouth or not?" She knew that Buddhists who were good at thinking would definitely have considered this. Mahayana had its own answer, and Hinayana had its own logic. It was not difficult for the abbot in front of her. However, similar questions could be easily used by others, especially now that they were in a live broadcast. If Fa Yuan did not answer, it would easily affect the reputation of Daxing Temple and himself. After that, even if there were Buddhist laymen who answered the questions on the internet, it would inevitably lead to a war of words. This was the characteristic of the current information society. Fa Yuan turned a deaf ear to him and maintained his previous posture, as if he was a tree that had lost its life. As expected of an eminent monk who practices silent meditation. He can really keep his composure. Ning Zitong thought for a moment and smiled. If you don't want to answer, then forget it. I know you must be struggling in your heart. She deliberately discredited Fa Yuan, but he still didn't answer. Even his breathing rhythm and the depth of his gaze didn't change. After a few more words of discredit, Ning Zitong respected her status and didn't pursue the matter further. She smiled sweetly and said, "I heard that after mastering thought steal, Grandmaster's silent meditation is considered complete. Why are you still not speaking? Did something go wrong in the middle? Did you break some commandment? Did you accidentally open your mouth and postpone it?" Fa Yuan didn't move an inch in the face of such malicious speculation. There was no change in his emotions at all. Ning Zitong, who had tried a few methods to no avail, saw that time was running out and gave up. She collected her emotions and adjusted her state of mind. At this moment, she saw Fa Yuan's eyes move. He was like a creature that had come to life after hibernation. 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 Did he fall asleep just now? Ning Zitong suddenly had such a ridiculous idea. She was momentarily dumbfounded, not knowing whether to be angry or amused. The referee didn't give her any time to think. He raised his right arm and swung it down. Begin. Fa Yuan's sallow skin suddenly glowed with a golden light. He raised his right palm and pressed it into the air in front of him. Ning Zitong's upper body didn't move. She moved horizontally like a ghost. A deep and clear palm print appeared on the bluestone ground behind her. There were no cracks around it, as if a metal object had been dug out by a sharp weapon. Vajra realm, Vajra seal, power that separates mountains. This technique had spawned many secret techniques, but only a few could do it as easily as Fa Yuan. Ning Zitong took a step forward. Suddenly, a strong wind started blowing around her. The wind was dyed black and became darker. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. While circling around Fa Yuan, she suddenly spun her body and turned into a spiral drill. She attacked her opponent at high speed and threw out a series of faint black shadows that blended in with the wind. They fiercely pounced on Fa Yuan, covering her original form. At the same time, drops of rain condensed. They either fell or floated horizontally, enveloping Fa Yuan. The color of the rain was close to black, but it was a deep red that had settled for a long time. Dark sect, sanguinary rain. The wind could tear one's mind and body apart, while the rain hid poison. The illusions were both real and fake, and the punches and kicks were hidden within. To everyone's surprise, Ning Zitong took the initiative to attack at the beginning of the match instead of just wandering around. This was the true nature of the Ghost King. The world seemed to darken. Fa Yuan's eyes flashed, and a round light appeared behind his head. It was a bright, clear, and bright light that illuminated the surroundings. This round light seemed to hide the 5 Buddhas that symbolized the 5 great wisdom. As soon as they appeared, all the phantoms naturally disappeared without a trace. All the poisonous rain quickly disintegrated and lost its original color. The combination of Vajra Sect's wisdom fist seal, Fa Yuan's Prajna Bodhisattva body, and thought steel. The high-speed rotating drill bit was revealed just as it was about to hit the other party. It was firmly hit by Fa Yuan's broad and long pale golden palm, and it did not deviate at all. Bam! Pale golden light scattered as Ning Zitong flew back. Before she landed, she changed direction in midair like a real ghost and dodged the follow-up attacks, increasing the distance between them. Lu Cheng was amazed by such a movement technique. Even though he had mesmerizing snow steps and wheels of wind and fire, he couldn't compare to flickering light passing shadow, which specialized in movement techniques. While Xunpa of Yanzhao sect was fast, it was too direct and not flexible enough. Perhaps only the Wind sect, which also specialized in movement techniques, could achieve such a level. Chihuahua might be able to do something similar in the future. Lu Qing thought to himself. They were both beautiful, strong, and skilled in movement techniques. No wonder Sister Ning and Chihuahua's master had been at odds with each other for so many years. It was hard not to compare them. P.S. I was too busy thinking about the dialogue and didn't have time to think about the fight. Sorry for the lack of words. Chapter 703. Seeing Ning Zitong retreat with flickering light and shadow, Fayuan didn't give up. He waited in place. With a wave of his red kasaya sleeve, he took a step in the general direction. Bam! 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 With every step he took, the air beneath his feet would condense into lotuses that reflected a glazed light. They seemed to be supporting and bouncing at the same time, allowing Fayuan to complete the movement that exceeded shrinking ground with ease. He quickly closed in on Phantom King Ning Zitong. Vajra sect, lotus seal, lotus steps. Seeing this, Lu Qing found it funny in the changing room. According to Dragon King, these guys only knew how to show off. Why did they have to make the condensed air take the form of lotuses? The most basic, iron plate, shape was enough. The effect was almost the same. Using more energy and mind to sculpt a lotus was a pure waste. Lu Qing still remembered Empress Luo being stunned for a while after hearing Dragon King's comments. Her mouth twitched. I won't argue with a barbarian, whoosh whoosh whoosh. Fayuan was fast, but Ning Zitong was fast. Her movements were smooth, agile, and strange, like a shadow moving at high speed. Although the distance between them was sometimes close and sometimes far, most of the time it depended on whether Empress Luo would attempt to attack. After failing to catch up, Fayuan stopped and stood calmly in place. He wasn't anxious at all, just like when he was practicing silent meditation. The round light behind his head that hid the 5 Buddha phantoms retracted into his body and appeared in his left and right irises. It dyed the color of his eyes with a glazed luster, clearly reflecting everything he saw and obtained. If one were to observe carefully, they would be shocked to find that Fa Yuan's eyes reflected not only what he saw but also what was behind him and above him. There were no blind spots. Vajra sect, wisdom seal. What you feel is what you see. The Buddha's aura that appeared from the combination of wisdom fist seal, prajna bodhisattva body, and thought steel was a huge burden even for a divine monk at Fa Yuan's level. He couldn't maintain it for 10 seconds at most, and then he had to rest for a while before he could use it again. Thump thump thump. Amidst the illusory footsteps, Ning Zitong suddenly closed in, as if she was about to attack. Her gaze was restrained, without any ripples. She concentrated on suppressing the various thoughts in her mind so that her opponent wouldn't hear them. Just as Fa Yuan was about to unleash his Vajra palm, Ning Zitong suddenly pulled her body back and flashed out of his thought steel range. She was like a robot following a predetermined sequence. However, Fa Yuan's palms, which were suffused with a faint golden luster, instantly became gentle. He flicked his 10 fingers together, and like a lotus flower blooming, he shot out 10 brilliant and pure-colored glass divine lights. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 10 beams of light crisscrossed, but they did not directly shoot at Empress Luo. Instead, they sealed off the space she could dodge to her left, right, and up. Following which, Fa Yuan clasped his palms together, opened them, and pushed them forward. An endless amount of Buddha's light burst forth and surged towards Ning Zitong, as if trying to drown her. The great light scripture of Buddha, Buddha's light illumination. At this moment, Ning Zitong did not choose to dodge or defend against the 10 beams of light. Instead, she lowered her waist, got into a horse stance, and used force concentration. She threw her right fist forward to take on the Buddha's light head-on. Her fist was as white as jade, but the surroundings were dark and gloomy. The darkness thickened instantly, as if a monster lurking in the depths of the universe had opened its huge mouth to devour the light. Sizzle! The Buddha's light was not as strong as it appeared. It kept dispersing and disappearing into the darkness, retreating little by little. At this point, Lu Cheng, who was not on the battlefield and could not sense the subtle danger, suddenly understood that Fa Yuan's Buddha's light illumination was a feint and a trap. The 10 beams of Buddha's light illumination were the real deal. Once Empress Luo dodged, it would be easy. If she dodged to the side and blocked at most 4 beams in one direction, she would be in danger and fall into a passive state, losing the advantage of her movement. This was different from the many variations of the Buddha's light illumination in the past. It was a technique that Fa Yuan had only recently perfected. Who knew that he would not be able to fool Ning Zitong? Not only that, but she had also taken advantage of the weakness of the Buddha's light to attack. Sizzle! The darkness expanded rapidly as the Buddha's light was extinguished one after another. Ning Zitong's figure kept dispersing, finally turning into an overwhelming number of shadows that attacked Fa Yuan. Like countless bats that had been awakened in a dark cave, it was hard to distinguish between reality and illusion. The 8th move of the dark sect, disintegration. Darkness reassembly. This was a powerful defensive move, but it could also be used for offense. Every shadow contained a portion of Empress Luo's power. It was half real and half fake. The dark sect techniques of the Longhu Club and the dark sect techniques of the Guanwai League came from the same source, the Dark Infinite Sutra. However, after generations of physical invulnerability experts from both parties perfected and created new techniques, including the inheritance of this technique before it fell into the hands of the military, the styles, characteristics, details, and some of the moves were quite different. Furthermore, the former lacked the 9th move, Dark Devouring Sunday Descent of Eternal Night. The distance between the two parties closed rapidly. Fa Yuan had no time to form the Buddha's light of wisdom. His skinny body suddenly bulged with muscles, the surface of which was flowing with a faint golden glow. His face was dark gold in color, solemn and dignified. The 2 circles of light in his eyes became clearer and clearer. At this moment, Fa Yuan used his fundamental move, Prajna Bodhisattva body, and used it to push the wisdom fist seal to its limits. Seeing this, Lu Qing felt like laughing. It wasn't that he thought there was something wrong with Fa Yuan's reaction. It was just that his current appearance reminded him of the muscular Tang Sanzang picture that had been popular on the internet for a while. Ryukong, dodge. Let me do it. Silently, a layer of faint golden flames burned around Fa Yuan's body. It circled and breathed, sacred and dignified. The shadows of power that Ning Zitong had created were immediately ignited the moment they came into contact with the flames. They quickly disappeared without a trace. Womb Sect, Guardian Azure Fire. Sizzle. Bam. With a loud explosion, the figure of the Ghost King, Ning Zitong, slowly appeared. She floated in midair, her legs spinning wildly as she drilled towards Fa Yuan. However, she was hit squarely by Fa Yuan's prajna punch and was stopped. At this moment, the remaining shadows retracted and gathered around Ning Zitong. She used the momentum to create something out of nothing. Straightening her back, she went from a half-lying position to a sitting position. Her palms moved in the darkness as she slapped at her opponent's temples. She also hit a downward momentum to prevent her opponent from retracting his neck and bending his knees. Everything before was just a setup. This was the killer move that she had been preparing for a long time. At this moment, Fa Yuan's body was surrounded by Guardian Azure flames as he blocked his opponent's legs with his fists. His momentum was already spent, and he didn't seem to have the time to defend or dodge this ordinary slap. At this critical juncture, the veins on his neck popped out and expanded like a balloon. He looked like a faint golden python that had swallowed a huge prey. Bam! He lowered his head, swung his neck, and exerted all his strength. He didn't dodge or block, only attack. Clang! The sound of metal clashing echoed. Fa Yuan used the crown of his head to hit Ning Zitong's right palm. He knocked her back, causing the slap on his left to miss. His scarred head was a faint golden color, but it was actually dark and iron-like. Daxing's secret art, Iron Head Technique. This was a common technique that Fa Yuan had casually practiced in the past. He didn't expect it to have such an effect now. Of course, without the force of the python swallow, the Iron Head technique alone wouldn't be able to block the Ghost King's slap. Even so, when the color faded, there was still a beautiful handprint on the side of Fa Yuan's head. There was a dark precipitate inside, like green but not green, and contained poison. Bam! Fa Yuan stepped on the lotus and took the initiative to distance himself. His eyes were a little dizzy. Ning Zitong's attack didn't land. She immediately calmed down and started to fight again. Both parties went back and forth for nearly half an hour. The square was filled with marks, and darkness and Buddha's light alternated. This was the situation that Ning Zitong was best at. She slowly but surely wore down Fa Yuan. However, under the mental influence of the relics in the pagoda, her every move was more strenuous than usual. Fa Yuan, on the other hand, could silently use the simplified swastika formula to recover part of his condition. The scales of victory started to tilt in his favor. Just as it was about to be too late, Ning Zitong, who was moving in the distance, suddenly smiled. She formed a seal with her hands and said in a low voice, "Wholeness." Lu Cheng's 9 words formula was collected together with the military. They complemented each other. Since Ning Zitong had accumulated so many merits, it was only natural that she would choose some secret techniques to practice. Once she used the wholeness formula, Ning Zitong immediately felt invigorated. She didn't look tired at all. This time, she didn't move around. Instead, she closed in on Fa Yuan and launched a series of attacks. Bam! 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 After repeated collisions, Fa Yuan's dark sect force, which had been accumulating in his body for a long time, gradually increased. It made it difficult for him to exert his strength, making it hard for him to breathe. Bam! Seizing this opportunity, Ning Zitong turned and appeared behind Fa Yuan like a ghost. Her palm hovered behind Fa Yuan's head. While Fa Yuan was dizzy, he heard the other party's clear and mature voice transmission. Big monk, you've lost. Ning Zitong seemed to have returned to the past. She didn't call him old monk, but big monk. At this moment, the referee raised his right hand and announced the result. Ning Zitong wins the first round. Just as he finished speaking, Wisdom King, Ji Hai, who was in the home team's changing room, stood up and walked out. The core of Daxing Temple's forbidden territory was the Vairocana body. Fa Yuan practiced the righteous body, the Prajna Bodhisattva body. Ji Hai practiced the Vairocana body of the Vairocana body, the body of the demon-vanquishing body, and the unmovable body of the Wisdom King. Chapter 704. The Akalanatha was known as the King of Wisdom Kings. It was adept at subduing demons and devils. It was also known as the Vairocana's enraged form. A martial art named after it was no small matter. It had the weakening effect of indestructible Vajra, cultivated force, and gathered Buddha's aura. It had no obvious shortcomings. It was so powerful that only a handful of people could master it. Throughout the history of Daxing Temple, only a handful of people had mastered the Akalanatha. Ji Hai, the Wisdom King, was one of them. Ji Hai didn't wear a red kasaya. Instead, he wore a loose yellow monk's robe. Handsome and radiant, he walked step by step to the center of the arena. Many in the audience cheered and declared that they would lick the screen. When he met Abbot Fa Yuan along the way, he calmly put his palms together and bowed in respect, maintaining his tranquility. Fa Yuan returned to his withered state. He silently returned the bow and nodded slightly. At this moment, Lu Cheng was recalling the match just now. He said thoughtfully, Sister Ning had already thought of what to do before she entered the range of thought steal. She turned her thoughts into instincts to avoid being eavesdropped on. Lu Yen turned to look at him and said with a straight face, "That's what they mean by the hand being faster than the brain. Coach, you have to be cultured. According to the novels I've read, that's called lawless." "No, it's called thoughtlessness." Lu Cheng complained to himself. "Ugh, if Coach knew thought steal, he would have killed me sooner or later, but, sigh, if the opponent was the talker, I could have said those words without holding back. We could have dissed each other and entertained each other." For a moment, Lu Cheng missed Little Ming. At this moment, the Wisdom King, Ji Hai, was already standing in his designated position. The referee announced the start of the second match. Lu Yen and the rest shifted their gazes back to the arena. Although Ning Zitong had waited until the end of the match to use the wholeness formula, this secret technique stimulated the body and squeezed out her potential. It came quickly, but it also drained quickly. The last few rounds of bloody attacks had taken quite a toll on her. Coupled with the injuries accumulated from the bitter battle and the suppression from the surrounding pagodas, she was less than half of her peak condition. Therefore, she didn't try to start the match like she did with Fa Yuan. Instead, she used her movement techniques and entered the familiar and adept phase of guerrilla warfare. In the previous match, she was able to fight Fa Yuan for more than half an hour. Firstly, the endurance of a physical invulnerability expert was much higher than that of an inhuman. Secondly, most of the time, she was guerrilla warfare and didn't engage in close-quarters combat. Hence, she didn't expend much of her energy. Also, to Empress Luo, as long as she didn't run or turn. As she was mostly in guerrilla warfare. And didn't clash and she didn't have much energy consumption. The subsequent development of the battle gave the audience the illusion that it was still Empress Luo fighting the abbot. This was because Wisdom King, Ji Hai, was also firmly defending. He wasn't arrogant or rash, and he was focused as one. He would deal with whatever came his way. If they didn't come, he would just stay where he was and watch. Of course, Ji Hai wasn't purely passive. At times, he would gather the Buddha's aura and shoot out laser-like rays. At other times, he would hold a glazed ball of light in his palm and shoot it out horizontally. His timing was always perfect. It was as if he had a natural ability to judge changes. The speed of the sun's shooting ray was absolutely terrifying. There were a few times when Ning Zitong was forced to dodge and almost hit. As such, she was gradually approaching the end of her tether. She had reached the warning line where she could go all out. Between failing miserably or giving it a try, Ghost King Ning Zitong chose the latter. Without making a sound, she made a high-speed turn and closed in on her opponent from an unbelievable angle. The surrounding sky quickly darkened, as if a cluster of black curtains had descended, creating a scene where there was no starlight, no moon, and a violent wind. It was a terrifying scene. In such an environment, Ning Zitong's speed increased again. Her force was also stimulated. Dark Sect 7th Style, Dark Moon High Wind. Dark Moon High Wind Night, the time for murder and arson. This was a unique skill that increased one's strength and weakened one's enemy. In gaming terms, it was a buff to oneself and a debuff to the enemy. Bam, bam, bam. Wisdom King Ji Hai welcomed a direct confrontation. His body glowed with a pure gold color as he resisted the corrosion of the environment. Using his Vajra fist, he continuously knocked back his opponent. He was as steady as a mountain and as steady as the ground. After an intense battle, Ning Zitong was completely drained. She was sent flying by the Vajra seal that could split mountains and break rivers. She fell back and almost lost her balance. Ji Hai didn't chase after her. Instead, he retracted his fist and looked over calmly. Ning Zitong swung her arm and shook her head at the referee. Round 2, Ji Hai of Supreme Class wins. The referee announced the result and shouted out Ji Hai's current title. A super class expert above the first class. Even though Empress Luo had already fought a fierce battle, Ji Hai was able to defeat her so easily. This was enough to show Ji Hai's strength. He truly stood in the ranks of title contenders like Dong Baxian and Lu Yongyuan, and he wasn't even 28 years old yet. After saluting, Ning Zitong turned and left. The tatters on her martial arts suit and the blood-stained wounds didn't diminish her elegance. Instead, they gave her a charm that set her apart from other girls. Lu Cheng had already stood up. After taking a deep breath, he pushed open the door to the changing room and walked over to Empress Luo. When they met, he gave her a thumbs up as a sign of respect. You don't have to praise me so exaggeratedly, Ning Zitong said in annoyance. Even though she said that, she couldn't stop the smile on her face. It was beautiful and charming. If I really believed your polite words, it would be a waste of little fairy's guidance over the past few years. Lu Qing chuckled to himself as he looked at the center of the limestone square. Wisdom King Ji Hai stood there. His features were handsome, his face was powdered, and his lips were rosy. However, he didn't look feminine at all. Other than his bald head, he didn't have any flaws in his appearance. A handsome man would still look handsome even if he shaved his head. Lu Qing chuckled helplessly. Shaking his head, he gathered his thoughts and stepped into the limestone square. The moment he stepped in, he immediately felt his desire to fight and the trembling of his body calm down. His surroundings were quiet and peaceful, as though there shouldn't be any conflicts. Just like the effects of the confrontation formula. Lu Qing narrowed his eyes and felt the influence of the many sariras in the pagodas around him. He had to constantly divert a portion of his attention to fight against them. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Lu Qing calmly walked to the designated spot. Using this opportunity, he easily entered the visualization state. Stroke by stroke, he outlined the ancient seal text. Fighting. Once the word was formed, his chi and blood surged. His willpower was so condensed that it shot into the sky. A sense of heroism that would never admit defeat or compromise surged through him. Opposite him was the Wisdom King, the most powerful heavenly son of the present age. Opposite him was a true top-notch expert who had defeated Warrior Sage and Dragon King. Opposite him was the benchmark that others used to measure him, the target that he set for himself. I've been looking forward to this battle for a long time. In the room of an unknown streamer. Kai Zhongming sighed emotionally. Finally, Lu Cheng and Wisdom King have met. Even though Wisdom King has already fought for half a round, and both of them aren't at their peak, this match still has a strong symbolic meaning. As for the specific meaning, I won't say much about it. However, I need to remind everyone that you can't judge a hero based on a single victory or defeat. This isn't ancient times, where the Dragon King and Warrior Sage lost before. Who hasn't lost before? No matter who loses later, don't be in a hurry to make a judgment. The result is important, but it isn't the only thing. The actual situation is what is reflected in the details of the match. Just as he finished speaking, he saw some comments on the bullet screen. Why do I feel like you're defending Lu Cheng and speaking up for him in advance? Yeah. You're teammates in Songqing University Martial Arts Club, roommates in the same dorm. Not objective enough. Kai Zhongming made an exaggerated expression and snorted. Do I look like that kind of person? Look at my looks, how righteous I am. My motto is I side with reason, not kinship. As he finished speaking, he lifted a piece of cardboard with the words, Lu Cheng, written on it. Come, little sunflower's lesson is starting. Everyone, repeat after me. Kai Zhongming pointed at the two words and said. Dao, Li, reason. The bullet screen went silent at first, then many comments flooded in. Lu Cheng equals reason, I like how shameless you are. Not bad, your commentary style is very refreshing. Looking at these replies, the corners of Kai Zhongming's mouth curled up as he sighed inwardly. If Cheng was here to cooperate, I would have a lot more to say. But now, I can't find a reason to. Looks like I have to work hard on my one-word skills. At 4:00 in the early spring, the sun was setting in the west and the light was starting to dim. Lu Cheng had just adjusted his body and focused on Wisdom King, Ji Hai's figure when the referee raised his hand and shouted, Begin. Bam! Light blue flames spewed out from Lu Cheng's back and feet, launching him forward. His fist went straight for Ji Hai's face. He didn't make any turns and instead launched a frontal attack as he had been longing for. How can I not weigh him up first? Ji Hai didn't dodge. Instead, he took a deep breath and his muscles bulged, swelling his monk robe. His skin was dark green, but it wasn't evil or demonic. It was holy and majestic, a strange contrast to his handsome face. Unmovable body of the Wisdom King. In the live streaming website, bullet screen after bullet screen appeared excitedly. Elder Tang is here. The mighty Elder Tang who defeated Sun Wukong single-handedly. Chapter 705. Seeing Ji Hai standing there without dodging and merely revealing his unshaken body of the Wisdom King, as though waiting to clash with him, Lu Cheng felt his blood boiling. He no longer considered any changes and displayed the fighting character he had drawn earlier. He didn't limit himself to the influence of his mind and willpower. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Bam! Lu Cheng was like a rocket, propelled by flames behind him. In an instant, he cleared the space between them and threw a punch. Along with this punch, his muscles bulged as if they had all evolved into fascia and connective tissue, outlining one after another ferocious serpent after another. His skin was all greenish-black in contrast, and he was more than a few times taller and thicker. Ji Hai's eyes were calm. He raised his right arm, which was about to tear his monk robes apart, and threw a punch forward. Clang! A crisp sound rang through the clouds, and an invisible shockwave spread in all directions. Lu Cheng felt his arm go numb, and his body wobbled. He almost lost his balance and was pushed back 2 steps by the immense force. One used the fighting formula, while the other used the unmovable body of the Wisdom King. In terms of pure strength, he was slightly inferior. Buzz! Buzz! Ji Hai's right fist hovered in midair. From his knuckles to his biceps, the glassy greenish-black skin was trembling slightly, like a steel plate that was hit by a hammer. At the last moment of the fighting formula, Lu Cheng had added Thunder Roar Zen. Bam! As he retreated, the fire force in his body condensed and exploded. He forcefully changed his direction and flashed to Ji Hai's right. The muscles on his left leg tightened, and he was about to pull it out. Just as Ji Hai was about to silently withdraw his kick and take the initiative to attack, the flame force that had only exploded on the surface exploded once again. It was as though an invisible hand had pushed Lu Cheng, forcing him to drag his left leg and turn to the back of his enemy. Second change of direction. Ji Hai leaned back, his left elbow glowing with the greenish-black Buddha's light. He charged at Lu Cheng without panicking. However, there was still some remaining fire force. It completely exploded, turning into a ferocious current. While slightly damaging Lu Cheng's muscles, it allowed him to follow his previous trajectory and reappear on the right side of his opponent. 3 directional changes. This was a high-end application of the force of the fire sect, originating from the golden godly flames. Using Emperor Yen as a substitute, even a physical invulnerability expert with strong mental strength and control over his body could only perform 3 rounds of jet spray. Only when one reached the level of the Dragon King would one be able to perform 4 rounds of jet spray. Ji Hai's unshaken body of the Wisdom King had strong defense, great strength, and fast speed. He could cultivate his force and use the Buddha's aura. There were almost no flaws. The only flaw was that it was a little clumsy. It wasn't agile enough in dodging. Of course, this was only for physical invulnerability experts who were good at movement techniques. Before the referee announced the start of the match, Lu Cheng had already planned to use the triple directional maneuver against Ji Hai. Now, he didn't even need to think about it and used it naturally, rendering Ji Hai's thought steal useless. Ji Hai had also cultivated thought steal, but unlike Abbot Fa Yuan and Living Buddha, Shi Shan, he had only reached the initial stage. However, at such a close distance, Lu Cheng was still worried that Ji Hai would notice something amiss. Hence, he had already thought of a change in the opening. Pa! A crisp and short sound broke through the air. Lu Cheng mysteriously returned to his opponent's right side. He lowered his left fist and punched out. Missing his left elbow, Ji Hai took a deep breath and clenched his trembling right fist. He suddenly hammered down. Although he was a little slower, he still managed to make it in time since he was fighting from the inside. Seeing that their fists were about to collide, Lu Cheng suddenly shifted his center of gravity. As though he was dragging a long spear, he forcefully moved his left arm and changed his position once more. Once again, he was behind his opponent. 4th directional maneuver. This time, he didn't use the force of the fire sect. Instead, he used his body refining and dance stage techniques. In the physical invulnerability stage, this was something that was eliminated. The signs were too obvious and the directional maneuver was too slow. It was equivalent to digging a hole for oneself. But now, Ji Hai was completely under Lu Cheng's control. He didn't expect Lu Cheng to use such a simple maneuver and wasn't mentally prepared. By the time he realized something was amiss, it was already too late. In terms of moves, there was no such thing as ordinary. There was only suitability. After 3 directional maneuvers, it was just right to continue like this. The image of a yellow monk's robe, chunks of muscles, and the bone dragon sandwiched in the middle appeared in Lu Cheng's eyes. Prepared, he lowered his center of gravity, swung his shoulders, and threw his right fist forward like a cannonball towards Ji Hai's spine. After 4 consecutive directional maneuvers, he was nearing the end. He couldn't use a powerful move for the time being, but he didn't want to give up this opportunity. Therefore, he used a simplified physical invulnerability move. However, this simplified physical invulnerability move might be more useful than a real physical invulnerability move. The strength of unmovable body of the Wisdom King was only slightly weaker than invulnerability body of Vajra. It was common for him to withstand attacks head-on. It was best to avoid the strong points and attack the weak points. For example, internal explosion. What Lu Cheng threw out was the internal explosion punch. Even though it would be weakened by the unmovable body of the Wisdom King when it penetrated his body, the remaining Emperor Yen force would explode inside his body. It would be enough to give Ji Hai a hard time. Furthermore, the fist was aimed at his spine. The surface of Lu Cheng's fist was pale purple, while Ji Hai's back was wide open. Many commentators stopped talking and waited for the result. Suddenly, a bright, pure, greenish-black light shone. An illusory yet real arm grew from Ji Hai's shoulder blade. There were many Buddhist markings on it, as though it could repel demons and vanquish evil spirits. Advent of the Wisdom King. This was Ji Hai's ultimate move from the Wisdom King transformation. Bam! The illusory arm swung down rapidly and hit Lu Cheng's right fist. Without a sound, the front part of the arm shattered into pieces of illusory glass. They danced around like fireflies, but they also deflected the fatal punch. Before the audience could react, the remaining half of the arm suddenly extended and turned into a greenish-black rope, wrapping around Lu Cheng's fist, forearm, and arm. Unmovable Wisdom King, one hand holding the rope, the other holding the sword. Lu Cheng's heart was as cold as ice. He didn't feel dejected or disappointed. Taking a deep breath, he tugged hard, breaking the rope and taking advantage of the momentum to retreat. Crack! 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 The moment the rope broke, it split open and burst into flames. The flames were greenish-black in color and seemed illusory. They didn't seem to have any temperature. Even with Lu Cheng's ability to control fire, he couldn't stop them from spreading. However, they didn't ignite his clothes or burn his skin. Instead, they seeped into his body. The devil-subduing precious fire that came with the unmovable Wisdom King. Once they burned their internal organs, the result was obvious. Seeing this, Lu Cheng's pupils shrank. He didn't dare delay. His right arm was instantly covered in a crystalline ice wall, freezing the devil-subduing fire within. With this delay, Ji Hai had recovered. He turned sideways and swung his right fist, whipping it towards Lu Cheng with greenish-black flames. At the same time, two illusory arms formed from the greenish-black light grew from his shoulders. One was holding a sword, the other was holding a rope. He attacked with all his might without any regard for energy consumption. This form and his handsome face formed a strange image. Bam! 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 Ji Hai swung his four arms and hammered at his opponent like a maniac. Lu Cheng's qi and blood were fluctuating, and his arms were sore and numb. He almost couldn't keep up with the rhythm and withstand the pressure. He had tried many times to change the situation and escape, but Ji Hai, who had four arms, didn't give him a chance at all. He would always forcefully break his arms, followed by a new round of attacks. Regardless of whether it was the scorching heat of the Emperor Yen force or the slowing and freezing effect of the Ice Spirit force, they couldn't shake the unshaken body of the Wisdom King. Amidst the purple flames, the greenish-black skin glowed with a glassy light, without a single trace of burn. Boulders flew everywhere. Lu Cheng was at a complete disadvantage and entered the rhythm of the Wisdom King. However, his ice heart was firm and he didn't panic at all. As he defended, he gradually understood why his attempts to escape had always failed. Thought steal. Ji Hai used thought steal to detect the clues in advance. If the combination of all-seeing God and heaven-earth connection allowed Lu Cheng to predict his opponent's next move in the blink of an eye, then thought steal allowed him to predict his opponent's next move before he made any preparations. To deal with this unique skill, he had to either increase his distance and think carefully before approaching, or he had to be mindful of thoughtlessness. The former was what Lu Cheng wanted to do but was always stopped by Ji Hai. He could only rely on thoughtlessness. After repeated training, Lu Cheng was able to apply his moves instinctively. However, in battle, he had to make judgments based on his opponent's situation. What he wanted to achieve was what he got. Just treat this as morning training. Just treat this as morning training. Lu Cheng, who kept hypnotizing himself, wasn't worried about being heard by Ji Hai. Ji Hai wouldn't know his state and routine during morning training. Bam! He raised his arms and blocked the two illusory arms smashing downwards. Then, without thinking about what Ji Hai would do or how he would react, he shrunk his body and half-squatted. His left fist shot out from his waist and diagonally upwards, aiming for the enemy's vitals. It was a mysterious move. Ji Hai's eyes flickered. He extended both his palms, one towards his crotch and the other towards Lu Cheng's head. However, Lu Cheng squatted even deeper. Just as his left fist made contact with Ji Hai's palm, he exerted force and rebounded. Like a cannonball, he shot out close to the ground and narrowly avoided Ji Hai's follow-up attack. Halfway through, he extended his curled body. Pressing his palms against the ground, he shifted and changed directions continuously in an attempt to increase the distance between them and form the 5 flames. At this moment, Ji Hai formed hand seals and said solemnly, "N.I." Lu Cheng's vision blurred. He realized that Ji Hai had reappeared in front of him. All the dodging seemed to be for the sake of closing in. N.I. syllable? Mental influence? Interfering with my judgment of direction? So much so that I came back after circling around? Lu Cheng knew that the N.I. syllable was a secret technique related to the mind. However, he didn't expect it to have such a unique application in the hands of Wisdom King Ji Hai. It gave him the feeling that he couldn't escape from Ji Hai's grasp. So close, yet so far. If I tell you to close in, you have to close in. If I tell you to stay away, you have to stay away. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Lu Cheng took a deep breath and stopped running towards Ji Hai. He gathered his qi, blood, force, and mind at his lower abdomen and drew an ancient and complicated symbol formed by 9 seal scripts in the miniature universe. Confrontation. Army. Fighting. Swordsman. Wholeness. Formation. Deference. Forwarding. Attainment. He felt invigorated. He felt as if something around him had been torn apart. There were no longer any undercurrents that could interfere with his judgment. Seeing that Ji Hai was closing in, he didn't take the opportunity to increase the distance. Instead, he released his Dan force and formed hand seals. Army. Along with this ancient syllable, Lu Cheng seemed to recall the scene of his first life-or-death battle in Shushan. He recalled the thrill of taking a life in 3 to 5 moves. He recalled the professional 9th pin from the dark sect who was bleeding from his 7 orifices after being hit by his palms. He recalled the life-threatening battle in the underground garage. He recalled Gu Hui, whose brain was blown apart by his own slap. He recalled the mummy that vanished under the cosmic phantom. He recalled the dark night bat whose skull was smashed by his own attack. He recalled the physical invulnerability expert from the Witch King lineage, Talon. The murderous aura from all these life-or-death battles and the sharpness of his blade were all infused into the army formula and enveloped Wisdom King Ji Hai. As a modern monk, this was what he lacked. In the past few days, Lu Cheng had discussed the shortcomings of the Wisdom King with Empress Luo, Lu Yan, Guijia, Yan Zhika, Peng Liyun, Ren Li, and the rest. They seriously considered if there were any openings that could be exploited. Other than his lack of agility, this was the only thing he could think of. He had also prepared a surprise for this. He recreated the past and developed the army formula, greatly increasing its power. Army. Just as Ji Hai approached, he felt a chill run down his spine. He smelled blood and danger and felt as if his head was about to explode. It was so clear and profound. His Zen mind was so deep that he wouldn't lose his composure. However, he couldn't help but shudder. He wanted to defend himself, so his movements paused. This pause was exactly what Lu Cheng wanted. Using the momentum of his Dan Qi, he took a step forward with his left foot. His entire body was in a reverse position, like a wound spring. He raised his right arm and clenched his fist. The center of his palm was dark and deep like the universe, embellished by specks of light. Tilting northwest, sinking southeast. Bam! His palm came down, and the surroundings turned dark. It was as though he had turned into a chaotic, boiling porridge. Ji Hai's eyes narrowed. It was too late for him to dodge. The greenish-black glow on his body shone brightly. His 2 fists and the 2 illusory arms of the Wisdom King blocked the attack. Boom! The boiling porridge swirled violently, and the greenish-black glow dissipated. The illusory objects instantly turned invisible and filled up the temporary vacuum. Obvious cracks appeared on Ji Hai's arms, as though his skin and muscles were made of metal. This was the unique characteristic of the unshaken body of the Wisdom King. After the successful punch, Lu Qing quickly used force concentration. He extended his left palm and extended his fingers, grabbing towards Ji Hai's head. He didn't give him any chance to catch his breath, just like how he dealt with the god-slaying saber, Lu Yonyuan. Ji Hai raised his right arm forcefully and placed it in front of his face. Whether it was his eyes or his temples, they were all weak points that even an invincible Vajra monk had to defend against. Bam! The 5 fingers grabbed onto Ji Hai's arm, but there wasn't any tearing force. Instead, white frost and crystals spread out. After tilting northwest, sinking southeast, Lu Qing quickly used Dan equilibrium to retract his flame force, causing extreme coldness to appear at the edge of the starry sky. Self-created unique skill, Lament of the Ice Queen. Seeing that he was about to be sealed in ice, Ji Hai's eyelids drooped. Pale golden flames burned on the surface of his body. They expanded and expanded, transforming into 8 heavenly dragons that shattered and melted into crystals. Protective azure flames. Lu Qing didn't succeed in his first move, so he immediately retracted his left palm and pulled his right arm back. His fist shot out like lightning, and the excess flame force behind him due to Lament of the Ice Queen naturally formed a sphere. It was red with faint purple hidden within. He couldn't care less about his appearance. He couldn't allow Ji Hai to adjust to the situation as quickly as possible. Ji Hai lowered his waist slightly and met the attack with his left fist. The Buddha light was much dimmer than before. Boom! The fist collided with the fireball, and the flames surged. The crack on Ji Hai's left arm deepened, but there wasn't any blood. He took 3 steps back. Activating the attainment formula, Lu Qing rushed forward and stomped his left foot on the ground. Hundreds of broken stones flew up and shot towards his opponent's lower body like a crossbow, forcing him to dodge or defend in a panic. Unexpectedly, Ji Hai didn't do anything else. He merely turned his thigh inward. Bam! 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 The rocks hit Ji Hai's calves and thighs, but they only tore his pants. They didn't break through the bruises. Bam! Bam! 2 of the lucky ones made it through and landed on Ji Hai's crotch. However, he didn't groan in pain even though they were crushed. Is this the effect of the iron crotch technique? Lu Qing was surprised. However, his movements didn't slow down. Using the force of the stomp, he straightened his back and punched at the temples of his opponent. Covered in faint purple, his fists were like venomous dragons emerging from the sea. Both of his arms were injured, and he hadn't adjusted his breathing. Ji Hai could only half squat, shrink his head, and dodge the attack. Bam! After destroying the airflow with one punch, Lu Qing's legs flew up and launched a series of kicks. Amidst the crisp sounds, the afterimages of his legs burned with purple flames appeared. Ji Hai blocked a few of them, then flipped backwards. Using his legs as razors, he forcefully whipped upwards. Bam! After their legs collided, Lu Qing took advantage of the momentum to leap higher. He shrunk his body into a ball, then extended his right hand and pressed down. Heaven and earth turned pitch black, with countless lights embellishing it. It was as though the starry sky was reflected here. Fundamental unique skill, Cosmic Phantom. Just as Ji Hai's feet touched the ground, his surroundings were sealed in ice. With a thought, he preemptively made a hand seal. Silently, he became an insect trapped in amber, unable to move. He could only watch as the stars came crashing down on him one after another. Ba! A solemn Buddhist voice came from the ice, and Ji Hai's aura surged. The Ba syllable could temporarily increase one's strength, but it couldn't bring about a huge leap in strength. If the Wisdom King, who was already at the peak of physical invulnerability, used it, wouldn't he be close to the forbidden zone, like the Dragon King and Warrior Sage? If the unmovable body of the Wisdom King were close to the forbidden zone, wouldn't it show? Just as Lu Qing was thinking, the scene before him changed. In the ice that was shattered and melted by the stars, boundless radiance erupted. They didn't jump around randomly. Instead, they formed a majestic Buddha statue made of pure light. The Buddha statue extended its right hand, its palm glowing with boundless radiance. The stars were drawn towards it and fell one after another. Vairocana, Advent. The Buddha closed its palm, and the dazzling radiance dissipated. Color returned to heaven and earth. Lu Qing thought that the temporarily enhanced Vairocana body would dissipate quickly. However, he realized that the glaze realm created by the pagodas was converging on Zhihai, allowing him to barely hold on. TSK, home ground advantage. Lu Qing did a somersault. Just as he landed, the Buddha statue made of pure light appeared in front of him. The palm enveloped everything and pressed down. There was no way to avoid it. Lu Qing knew that this was a realistic illusion caused by the strong influence on his mind. He quickly visualized the complete 9 words formula, using the complex seal scripts to strengthen himself and weaken his enemies to defend against all of this. Lin. Army. Fighting. Swordsman. Wholeness. Array. Deference. Forward. Attainment. All the ancient words lit up. The Buddha light in his eyes faded, and he finally saw Zhihai. His body was trembling, and he looked exhausted. He forced his right hand to strike over. Boundless radiance gathered in his palm. At this moment, Lu Qing, who had used the 9 words formula, couldn't execute any more complex moves. He channeled all the Emperor Yen and Ice Spirit in his body, causing them to surge out from his right and left fists. Bam! Bam! He extended his fists. One was covered in terrifying purple flames, while the other was surrounded by frost. Just as they were about to block the Vairocana body's palm, they suddenly drew close to each other and stuck close. The ice and fire balanced, forming a whirlpool. A ball of darkness appeared. Poof! When the Buddha's palm hit, the light and darkness disappeared together. With the building as the center, the ground within a radius of more than 10 meters suddenly collapsed, forming a pit. The location where the fist and palm collided was 2 meters deep. Lu Cheng's legs were trembling, just like when he was young and tried to be a hero in the dead of winter. Blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. His breath was at its lowest point, and only a little force remained in his body. He didn't think about anything. He formed a hand seal naturally, evoking the mysterious words. He said solemnly, "Wholeness." The moment he said wholeness, Lu Cheng's mental and physical strength returned to normal. He was a good man again. The Wisdom King, Zhihai, also shouted solemnly, "Let's go." Bang! Mystery descended. His fatigue disappeared, and his condition was refreshed. These two are truly evenly matched, meeting each other in a game of chess. Poison Milk Hierarch, He Xiaowei commented, one fought half a round, while the other was affected by the home field advantage. They're on par with each other. There's going to be a fierce battle coming up. P.S. I'm just a little short of 6,000 words, so I won't fill it up. The extra words are for everyone. Chapter 706. Lu Cheng's thoughts were similar to He Xiaowei's. Knowing that he had a tough battle ahead of him, he immediately used force concentration after using the wholeness formula. He concentrated the churning of his qi and blood, the trembling of his bones, the soreness of his muscles, and all the other negative effects on his body into his lower abdomen, alleviating them as much as possible. At the same time, he released and retracted his Dan qi. Leveraging the force, he leaped back and faced Zhihai, retreating to the edge of the crater at high speed. The Emperor Yen hidden in his body was ready to explode at any moment, allowing him to change directions without warning and avoid being targeted by his opponent. After both of them refreshed, Lu Qing quickly grasped the distance between them. He judged that he wouldn't be able to stop Zhihai from using the Ba formula to upgrade his Akalanatha to Vairocana. Since that was the case, attacking blindly was equivalent to walking right into a trap. He might as well switch to a battle of attrition, restraining his temper and wearing out his opponent. Be it the wholeness formula or the recovery of the Ba formula, they were both effects of forced stimulation. It looked like he had returned to his peak, but the rate of decline was much faster than normal. In the same state, Lu Cheng had consciously strengthened his physical strength and mental fortitude since he started practicing martial arts. He had been suppressing himself and using the 9 words formula to train the latter. Even if it was the Dragon King or the Warrior Sage, he still had a chance of winning, let alone the Wisdom King, Zhi Hai. Seeing his opponent quickly leave the crater, Zhi Hai didn't wait in his spot. He patiently recovered, just like when he faced Empress Luo, who had just fought a fierce battle. His monk robes fluttered as he stepped on a lotus flower and rapidly chased after his opponent. As he moved and turned, there was the rumbling of thunder that sounded like Buddha's preaching. At other times, there was the transcendent sound of enlightenment. At other times, there was a majestic roar that shook the soul. Great cloud thunder roar. Great wisdom roar. Great lion roar. Zhi Hai had already reached the highest level of the lotus seal movement technique, 8 accompanying notes. However, the leakless sound, liberation sound, lion roar, wisdom roar, and thunder roar weren't as good as the previous 3. Apart from the nimble movements, Zhi Hai was only inferior to mighty ones of the same level, who were famous for their movement techniques. Lu Cheng's ears were filled with Buddhist chants, so loud that even the apathetic could hear them. He slowed down his steps, but fortunately, he had already formed his ice heart while he was retreating, so he could calmly watch the cracks appearing on the crystal-clear lake. At this juncture, his ears seemed to be as flexible as his limbs. They extended forward and covered himself. In his mind, he outlined the forwarding formula, suppressing the fear and epiphany. While doing this, he relaxed his control over the Emperor Yen force in his body, allowing it to explode on its own. Under a certain guidance, it turned into a stream of air that pushed his body to the left. Then, he twisted his waist and turned his back, striding forward and making turns. Zhi Hai's lotus steps, 8 notes accompanying each step, changed directions with Lu Cheng. He followed Lu Cheng's trajectory closely, not letting the distance widen. This battle is more advantageous to me. What is Zhi Hai thinking? Lu Cheng was puzzled. However, he couldn't divert his attention to figure out what Zhi Hai was thinking while he was moving at high speed. Moreover, he didn't smell any dangerous scent. However, this also made him temporarily abandon the idea of looking for an opportunity to close in and attack, ignoring the word entanglement of wandering and tangling. Bang bang bang. Rumble 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 rumble. The sound of thunder, Buddha's voice, and lion's roar reverberated in the limestone square, creating clouds of air. Lu Cheng and Zhi Hai, one running and one chasing, advanced at high speed and made turns continuously. This was a lesson for the martial artists watching the match. The arena was only so big, so Lu Cheng couldn't make the distance between the 2 sides widen instead of narrowing it. He had to change directions several times to fly past his opponent and turn to the other side. Otherwise, he would leave the arena and automatically admit defeat. Of course, this was always within the safe range that he had set. Just as another similar turn of events occurred, he suddenly heard a solemn Buddhist voice in his ears. Ba. Ba sound? Is Zhi Hai crazy? Lu Cheng was shocked. He understood that Zhi Hai was using the ba sound to temporarily raise his level and get closer to the forbidden zone. After getting closer to the forbidden zone, Akala was equivalent to Vairocana. However, the problem is that I haven't come into contact with him. No matter how strong Vairocana body is, it's useless if it can't hit me. Isn't he afraid that I'll drag out the effects of Vairocana body until the effects wear off? Or is he trying to catch up to me with the speed of Vairocana body? But if that's the case, I can wait for him to exhaust himself. I can use tilting northwest sky, sinking southeast earth to deal a fatal blow to him, who is greatly drained from his level recovery. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Lu Cheng didn't hesitate. He outlined the attainment formula in his mind. Light blue flames gushed out from his feet as he attempted to escape and make Zhi Hai's Vairocana body eat dust. After the ba sound, Zhi Hai's aura surged. The surface of his body shone with a pure greenish-black luster until it was colorless. It was as though he was made of light. Looking at Lu Cheng's retreating figure, he didn't chase after him. Instead, he seized the fleeting opportunity and used Vairocana body to execute all the 6 syllables of Sanskrit mantra. Wang. Ma. Ni. Ba. Mi. Bang. These 6 words didn't ring out one by one. Instead, they appeared in the air to the left at the same time. In Lu Cheng's ears, up, down, left, right, front, back, the airflow vibrated. The Buddha's voice rolled and merged into one sound. Wang. Ma. Ni. Ba. Mi. Bang. The surrounding Buddha's sarira glow from the pagodas thickened like syrup. Lu Cheng was like a fly caught in it. His movements slowed and his speed decreased as he was suppressed. A fleshy palm shone with boundless radiance. It extended its fingers and pressed down clearly. It seemed slow, but it solidified the surroundings. To think that the 6 syllables of Sanskrit mantra combined with Buddha's sarira would have such an effect. You wouldn't be able to tell just by watching the video. Lu Cheng understood that this was mostly a mental effect. He made a forced concentration, moved the stars, and outlined the fighting formula. There's still time. Ji Hai is still a distance away from me. I can't be fooled by appearances and react hastily. At this moment, Lu Cheng didn't use the complete 9 syllables formula. It was mainly to increase his mental strength, weaken the enemy, and shake off the influence. It couldn't replace explosive power or reaction. If he used it, he would have to rely on the fighting formula to break free from the restraints. Then, he would have to face or dodge Vairocana's palm head-on. Obviously, he couldn't do that with the time he had. Bam, bam, bam. Lu Cheng's body expanded. His bones cracked, his muscles bulged, and his veins bulged. He forcefully tore apart the viscous Buddha's aura, causing it to explode. Just as he regained his freedom, Vairocana's Buddha's palm approached. He forced himself to calm down. Based on his premonition of danger and judgment of the enemy, he prepared in an orderly manner. After a short moment of silence, his eyes deepened. He raised his arm and clenched his right hand. His palm seemed to contain a dark and boundless starry sky. Tilting northwest sky, sinking southeast earth. Without a sound, he turned his palm and pushed it diagonally towards the descending Buddha's palm. That was where he felt the most danger. Boom! The Vairocana was like tempered glass. It shattered but didn't shatter. The illusions around it were torn apart by streaks of darkness. The Buddha's realm was filled with the will of great destruction. It clustered around the tiny palm and blocked the gigantic Buddha's aura. Amidst the earth-shattering noise, the Vairocana that filled the sky collapsed, revealing Ji Hai's figure once again. Lu Cheng staggered backward. Every step he took left deep footprints and fresh blood spurting out of his mouth. His right arm was trembling, his palm was shaking, and his center of gravity was wobbly. He almost lost it. Coupled with the remnants of his previous injuries, his injuries weren't light. Ji Hai mustered his remaining strength. Under the illumination of the remaining Sarira Buddha's aura, he maintained the radiant Vairocana form. Taking a step forward, he tightened his ankles, knees, waist, and the muscles that connected them like a maharaja. He struck his palm towards Lu Cheng, releasing a pure and boundless light. The first thought that came to Lu Cheng's mind was to detonate Emperor Yen and dodge horizontally. However, he quickly suppressed the thought, which was most likely too late. Lowering his waist, he steadied his body, drew back his chi and blood, and once again drew the fighting formula. The fighting formula combined with the force of the Dan. Bam! His fist, propelled by his bulging body and bulging muscles, punched towards Ji Hai's palm. Boom! The light dissipated and quickly dimmed. Ji Hai paused, and Lu Cheng was sent flying backwards. It was as though time had stopped at this moment. While Lu Cheng was inhaling in mid-air to alleviate the negative effects, suppress his injuries, and regain his balance, the Wisdom King, Ji Hai ignored the drop in his aura. His feet moved like a lotus flower, forcing Lu Qing to move a few meters to the side using his Dan Qi. Then, he pounced forward and closed in on Lu Qing. Bam! His fist glowed with a faint golden light as it went straight for Lu Qing's head. Lu Qing raised his right arm and blocked. Just as he blocked, his left fist shot out in an attempt to counterattack. His fist went straight for Ji Hai's temple. He wanted to seize this moment to force Ji Hai to switch from offense to defense. However, Ji Hai merely tilted his head to avoid the attack. His other fist, which was heading for Lu Qing's abdomen, didn't slow down at all. At this moment, Lu Qing's hastily gathered Emperor Yen force exploded internally, changing the position of his palm. He extended his 5 fingers and grabbed at Ji Hai's eyeballs, ignoring the incoming attack on his abdomen. Ji Hai suddenly bulged his neck and pulled his cervical vertebrae, raising his head slightly. His opponent's fingers dug into his eye bags. Clang! Lu Qing felt as though he had hit metal. All he could do was create a few cracks. However, with the change in direction of his palm, he tilted his body slightly and kicked Ji Hai's elbow with his right leg. Ji Hai's fist flew upwards and missed his chest. Bam! 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 Ji Hai took advantage of the situation to launch a ferocious and demonic attack. His palms, punches, and kicks all pinned his opponent to the ground. At this moment, Lu Qing finally understood why Ji Hai had used the boss syllables without any regard for energy consumption to recreate the Vairocana body, forcing him to fight head-on. When both parties were left with little HP, once they entered an intense melee battle, the immovable Wisdom King, who had the weakening effect of invincible Vajra, had the advantage. Ji Hai only had to worry about a few vital points, unlike Lu Qing, who had to worry about everything. As for the combination of enemy heart-freezing move and God above head, Lu Qing could use Thought Steal to counter it. In other words, Lu Qing had been pulled into Ji Hai's domain, where he could best utilize his experience. Gradually falling into a passive defense, Lu Qing wasn't willing to wait for death. He secretly circulated his qi and blood to stimulate his body and used the simplified fighting formula. Bam! After blocking Ji Hai's fist with his arm, he suddenly exerted force. With a flip and a fling, he wanted to push Ji Hai away and increase the distance between them. At this moment, Ji Hai's fingers shot out and grabbed Lu Qing's forearm. Following which, his arm was visibly elongated as his body moved backwards. His joints and tendons creaked simultaneously. There was even a jarring sound of bones grinding against each other and a feeling of dislocation. He held on tightly and didn't let go. Using his arm as a spring, he pulled it back and raised both his legs, kicking towards Ji Hai's abdomen. Lu Qing didn't have time to turn to the side. He could only form a fist with his other hand and transform it into a hammer. Bam! As he hammered, he turned to the side. Ji Hai's right leg, which he had just hammered, was already diagonally facing Ji Hai, causing Ji Hai's follow-up left leg to miss. Before Lu Qing could catch his breath, Ji Hai used his palm as a fulcrum and swung his waist forward. His bald head, which glowed a bluish-black, smashed into Lu Qing's face like a cannonball. Iron head of the Akala Wisdom King. A rock against an egg. Lu Qing's pupils shrank. He took a deep breath and curled his body into a ball. Half of it was a force concentration, and the other half was a headbutt. This was his only choice at the moment. Bam! Ji Hai's forehead broke through the air flow. His other hand struck out silently and coincidentally stopped at the side of Lu Qing's head. For this attack, he started with his right fist, then his legs, then his head, and finally his left hand. He used almost every part of his body before finally succeeding. Lu Qing's Dan Qi exploded, but he wasn't able to expand his head enough to withstand the attack. He could only take advantage of the momentum to stand up. From afar, the referee raised his right hand and announced loudly, "Round 3, Ji Hai of Supreme Class wins." Chapter 707. This home field advantage is way too strong. Lu Qing couldn't help but mutter to himself when he heard the referee's announcement. If not for that, Ji Hai's Vairocana body wouldn't have lasted that long. The full version of the 6-syllable Sanskrit mantra wouldn't have had such ridiculous effects either. More importantly, the pagoda where the relics were placed was outside the arena. With the protection of the eminent monks, the martial artist in the away match wouldn't have been able to destroy it. He could only hope that his opponent would exhaust him. Amidst these thoughts, Lu Qing took a deep breath and suppressed the resentment and unwillingness in his heart. It wasn't the attitude of a true martial artist to blame the environment and other factors for his failure instead of finding fault with himself. Besides, it was a tradition for top-tier professional matches to have home field advantage. Didn't he take advantage of this when he defeated god-slaying saber Lu Yongyuan in the previous round? The pagoda Saraira at Daxing Temple wasn't added at the last minute. It had been there for many years. It was his own fault for not being able to see through the phenomenon and deduce the possible anomalies from the videos and experiences. Phew. Lu Qing exhaled and saluted the Wisdom King, Ji Hai, who had retracted his fists and legs. At that moment, his heart skipped a beat as he recalled Ji Hai's thought steal. Even though it's only at initial mastery, I didn't try to hide it. Could he have heard my thoughts? *T, will he think I'm a sore loser? This is so King embarrassing. Lu Qing lifted his gaze and looked into Ji Hai's eyes. He tried to analyze if Ji Hai had heard his thoughts through the window of his soul. His eyes were as pure as a child's. There wasn't the slightest bit of distraction in them. It seems like he won't use thought steal unless it's a battle. Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief. He turned around and walked to the edge of the limestone square. Ji Hai seized the opportunity to absorb the remaining luster, recovering as much as he could. Step by step, Lu Qing couldn't help but replay the battle. He had a deeper understanding of why Ji Hai was able to obtain the king and supreme class titles. Long-range attacks were useless against him, and neither was close-range combat. If he had formed 5 flames and used his advantage as a cannon to attack from afar, Ji Hai wouldn't have had to dodge. All he had to do was block his Achilles heel and use unshaken body of the Wisdom King. At the very least, he would have to combine 3 flames into one to hurt him. However, Ji Hai wasn't blind and didn't have mental senses. How could he not avoid such a situation? No matter how strong Lu Qing was, he couldn't keep using 3 flames into one and 5 flames as attacks. In close-range combat, Thought Steal would be able to counter the combination of enemy heart-freezing move and all-seeing God. Other than his ability to sense danger, Lu Qing was at a disadvantage in terms of prediction. His evasive maneuvers could be easily seen through. As for strength, speed, defense, and tolerance to negative effects, they were Ji Hai's forte. Ji Hai could use brute force to win, but Lu Qing had to be cautious. A simplified form of physical invulnerability, internal explosion, had to be hit at an important spot to cause some damage after penetrating the opponent's body. The more advanced version, Golden Godly Flames, was more effective, but it required more preparation. Ji Hai wasn't a wooden block waiting to be hit. He could sense it with thought steal and make the right response. For example, he could hide the Buddha's light to dispel the flames that had entered his body. It's close to impossible to counter. Lu Qing sighed. He knew that there was only one most effective way to deal with Wisdom King. That was to use a combination of close-range and long-range attacks. First, he would widen the distance and look for an opportunity. Then, he would come up with a plan and turn it into an instinctive reaction. Next, he would close in and launch a round of frenzied attacks. If he didn't succeed, he would repeat the process and patiently wear him down until the end of time. Of course, this was the best method for normal physical invulnerability experts, but not for perverts. The Dragon King had used the penetrative attack of the Golden Godly Flames and his own terrifying strength to push the fire-like invasion technique forward. He didn't give Ji Hai the chance to use the 6-syllable Sanskrit mantra. Even if Ji Hai could hear it, he wouldn't be able to escape. He wouldn't be able to find a way to counterattack and would be forced to die. However, at the Dragon King's level, thought steal of lesser mastery shouldn't have much of an effect. It's a pity I haven't reached that level yet. Lu Qing shook his head slightly. He stepped out of the limestone square and saw Lu Yen walking towards him. At this moment, all sorts of discussions were going on online. There's still a gap. It seems impossible for Lu Qing to get a title in 2 years. That's the gap between him and the title holders. I'm referring to the experts who have won titles in recent years, not including the half-crippled warrior sage or the god-slaying saber who has a habit of failing miserably. Poison Milk Hierarch thinks Lu Qing will get a title in 2 or 3 years. What a poison milk, can't he reflect curses? How can we explain metaphysics? Hands up. I don't think the gap is big. Yeah. Usually, the Wisdom King's Vairocana body wouldn't be able to last that long. It would be more exhausting too. He has a clear home field advantage. But Elder Tang had a match with Empress Luo before, even if she was at her lowest. Then we're even. Lu Qing didn't lose that easily, right? He almost drained the Wisdom King. There's a gap between them, but it's definitely not that big. Words aren't proof. Neither can convince the other with just the keyboard. Let's wait for them to fight one-on-one. The new Warrior Sage Battles official competition is in May. I'm racking my brains to think of a title for Lu Qing. Looks like I don't have to rush. Amidst the commotion, the 4th match began. Lu Yen took advantage of the fact that the Wisdom King, Zhi Hai, was at the end of his rope to imitate the Dragon King. However, Zhi Hai's unshaken body of the Wisdom King once again refreshed everyone's understanding of him. Despite being at a disadvantage in many aspects, he held on for more than 3 minutes. During that time, he took 5 golden godly flames and 16 internal explosions before collapsing to the ground. He even managed to injure Lu Yen, which made many people exclaim, "So King tough." As expected of a supreme-class expert. Lu Qing exclaimed as he held his phone. In the 5th match, Lu Yen faced the living Buddha, Shi Shan. Their battle seemed ordinary, but Lu Qing knew that their mental battle would be exceptionally exciting. Unfortunately, less than a tenth of the audience was able to see it, with only a few special effects. During this process, Lu Yen was at a disadvantage a few times. He showed signs of turning the tables several times, but in the end, he was defeated. In terms of experience, the living Buddha, who had inherited the wisdom of countless lifetimes, wasn't targeting anyone. The competition came to an end. The Longhu Club, who attempted to defend their title as the world's #1, lost in the 2nd round. In front of the TV screen, the Dragon King, Chen Qitao, who had already left the hospital and returned home, put down the remote control with a straight face. After returning to the club, Lu Qing calmed himself down and focused on training again. The next day, he went to the conference room after breakfast. He planned to review the battle at Daxing Temple with Empress Luo, the coach, and Guijie. He wanted to sum up his experience and find his own flaws. Before he entered, he felt the air was heavy and solemn. There was a certain pressure that shook his soul. SSS. Lu Qing took a deep breath and entered. He saw the Dragon King, whom he hadn't seen in a long time, standing at the head of the conference room. He was dressed in navy blue and had an intimidating aura. At this moment, other than the Dragon King, only Lu Qing and Guijie were present. Chen Qitao nodded with his hands behind his back. He said calmly, "You guys still need more training." Ugh. Lu Qing suddenly felt a stinging sensation at the corner of his mouth. After Chen Qitao's comeback, the Longhu Club won consecutive victories. Lu Yen was no longer the main force, which gave Lu Qing more opportunities to play. At the end of March and beginning of April, the finals of the Battle of the Kings began as scheduled. This time, the Dragon King successfully defended his title. Other than that, there weren't many professional matches in April. The focus was on the final round of the National University Martial Arts Competitions, which was held in Songqing this year. The organizers planned to invite the team that had climbed out of the bottom of the valley and won the championship. It was also the team that could best represent Songqing's image to attend the opening ceremony as a guest. Lu Qing received a call about this. How infuriating. Why can't it coincide with spring break? Yenjika said, Qing, you're representing 3 people now. Huh? Lu Qing sent a confused expression. What do you mean by 3 people? Did I buy fake products during spring break? You're representing yourself, me, and my brother. Yenjika replied, you're representing yourself. Your brother isn't going? Lu Qing wiped his forehead. I don't think he likes such lively activities. I didn't ask. Why don't you go and verify? Yenjika suddenly felt unconfident. Chapter 708. Verify? Lu Qing opened his contact list and was about to give Lin Kei a call. Just as he found the entry of brother-in-law, his fingers suddenly paused. Back then, they had won the championship together. Now, one of them was a physical invulnerability expert, while the other was still at the inhuman stage. Furthermore, they had to revisit old haunts and reminisce about the past. If it were me, I wouldn't go either. Just like what they said on the internet, who would go to the reunion 10 years later if they weren't doing well? Not to mention those with super high self-esteem. Lu Qing looked at his phone and nodded slightly. He felt that he could understand brother-in-law's mentality. Therefore, wouldn't it be blatantly boastful to make such a call? Let's use a more tactful method. Lu Qing opened the contact list interface and found Lin Kei's QQ. He wrote a message, are you going back to Songqing for the opening ceremony? After clicking send, he didn't expect to receive an immediate reply. Brother-in-law was the kind of person who didn't show up for many years. Just as he was about to exit the interface and report to his wife, a beep sounded. Lin Kei replied, yes. Lu Qing was dumbfounded by this simple word. This is different from the standard answer, mate. Of course, he was too embarrassed to ask why. After thinking for a long time, he got rid of the feeling of being unable to reply. See you in Songqing. Lin Kei replied quickly, okay. At that time, the atmosphere was very cold. Lu Qing complained. He temporarily left the conversation with Lin Kei and found Yenjika. Wiping sweat in horror expression, your brother is going to, the girl first replied with an emoji of shock and then replied with an emoji of rolling her eyes, My brother still has feelings for Songqing University and the martial arts club. Although he didn't say it, I can see it. But his actions are still very honest. Lu Qing joked and then complained to his little fairy, is your brother always so cool and cold when chatting online? He always uses one word to dismiss me without a second word. No, my brother is just used to using the simplest words. He doesn't say anything unnecessary, as long as he can express his meaning clearly. Yenjika said, rubbing her chin. But that feeling of being cold and distant is very obvious. Lu Qing said, pretending to shiver. Yenjika replied with a dumbstruck expression, my brother is like this all the time. It has nothing to do with chatting online. That's true. Lu Qing thought for a while and said, then I'll ask him a complicated question. Let's see if he can answer me in a few words. What's the problem? The girl was curious. I want to ask him when he will arrive in Songqing. I can't possibly use one word to express it clearly, can I? Lu Qing replied with a smug expression. After a few seconds, he returned and sent a crying face emoji. My brother only used one word? How did he do it? Yenjika's eyes sparkled, and her heart was full of curiosity. Lu Qing replied with a sluggish expression. Your brother didn't say a single word this time. He took a screenshot of the flight information and threw it to me. Yenjika froze for a second, then laughed out loud and sent an emoji of pounding the ground madly. April 6, Songqing Xinghao Wanjing Hotel. Lu Qing was led to his room by the staff of the organizing committee who was in charge of receiving him. Mr. Lu, there will be a luncheon tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. The opening ceremony will start at 7 p.m. A car will come to pick you up then, the organizing committee member reminded him respectfully. Okay. Lu Qing nodded slightly and watched him leave. When the door was closed, he was no longer as reserved and mature as before. Holding his phone and smiling, he leisurely took pictures of the situation in the room from various angles and sent them to Yanjika. The organizing committee is quite generous with their money. It was 5:00 p.m. in Connecticut, and the girl was still asleep. After sending the pictures, Lu Qing planned to contact Talker and ask his teammates if they wanted to have a meal together. Just as he typed the first word, he felt something in his heart and looked at the door. A few seconds later, there was a rhythmic knock on the door. Lu Qing walked over with a smile and opened the door. It was indeed little Ming, who was dressed casually. "I was just about to look for you. Our hearts are connected." He made a joke. Kai Zhongming said disdainfully, "I knocked one by one. If anyone is here, I will invite them to a meal together." After saying that, heads popped out from behind him. There was Li Mao with a square face, Sun Jian and Lin Hua who were about to get married, He Zi, Wang Dali and Mu Jinyan who were still fit for this year's competition. In front of the opposite wall stood Lin Kei, who was dressed simply and neatly. He had the same short hair as before. He was still silent, as if nothing had changed. Kai Zhongming smiled and spread his hands. "Surprise. Surprise? Surprise your head. Do you think I'm blind? Do you think my mental senses are fake? Before you even knocked on the door, I already knew how many people were there and who they were." Lu Cheng's mouth twitched, and he expressed his disdain with his eyes. "Let's go. There is a restaurant nearby that is suitable for us to brag about." Kai Zhongming raised his chin and pointed in the direction of the elevator. "Okay." Lu Qing didn't dawdle. He took the things and closed the door. When he passed by Lin Kei, he took a good look at him and was relieved to find that his brother-in-law seemed to have recovered from the inhumane modification experiment. He was full of energy and his body was normal, but he didn't see much improvement. Anyway, according to Ku, it was a blessing in disguise. Lu Qing smiled and raised his right hand to Lin Kei, just like the prelude to the high five in the university martial arts competition. However, Lin Kei didn't move. Lu Qing felt that his brother-in-law was looking at him as if he was looking at a childish person. This is King embarrassing. Lu Qing was about to withdraw his hand with a hollow laugh when Lin Kei finally raised his hand and gave him a high five. Kai Zhongming stood aside and tried to hold back his laughter. "Qing, you didn't even give us a high five. I want to complain about the difference in treatment. Hey, since ancient times, only the newcomers laughed. Who has ever heard the old cry? You are full of drama." Lu Qing laughed and scolded him. He Zi, who was behind them, focused on the previous scene. She took out a pen and paper from her backpack but couldn't draw anything for a long time. "You want to draw a little yellow rabbit?" Wang Dali couldn't help but distance himself from her. He Zi nodded seriously and answered in a low voice, "I've already finished a 500,000-word novel in my mind." 10 minutes later, Lu Qing looked around in shock and said to Kai Zhongming in a bad mood, "Is this what you mean by a restaurant that suits us? What kind of eyes would treat a food stall as a restaurant?" Kai Zhongming laughed and said, "This is called remembering the bitterness and thinking of the sweetness. Plus, when we gather together, there will be a lot of lamenting about the past. The private room doesn't feel grounded enough. This is better. No one will stop you even if you sing with a beer bottle. I do miss the food stall in Songcheng," Li Mao said in a reminiscing tone. "Actually, so do I," Lu Qing agreed silently. That was the most unforgettable period of his life. After finding a remote place to set up the table, Kai Zhongming, as usual, was busy ordering food and drinks. When he was done, he sat beside Lu Qing and patted Li Mao's shoulder. "Senior Li Mao, you're chubby now. You're doing well." "Not bad, not bad," Li Mao said humbly. Kai Zhongming smiled and said, "I heard you're the company's security supervisor now. Talker knows everyone's current situation very well. In this aspect, I'm far behind him. Some guys are just natural socializers." Lu Qing listened with a smile and criticized Little Ming in his heart. I'm just the head of the security department. Li Mao laughed at himself. On the other side, Sun Jian muttered, good thing you're not a concierge. Ouch, Lin Hua pinched his thigh. Li Mao pretended not to hear and continued the topic. I went to Huahai to do security training before. Sigh, I realized that I didn't use the major I studied in university at all. Not even a little. I feel like I've wasted my life. He couldn't help but joke. How is this a waste of time? You didn't even date in university. Kai Zongming said sarcastically. A few people present felt like they had been shot in the knee. After he got everyone's attention, he picked up the cup and knocked on the table with the bottom of the cup. Come, cheers. To Songqing University Martial Arts Club, to our champion, to our burning passion, to our youth, to our reunion after so long. Damn, you're so eloquent. You're so different after becoming a broadcaster. Lu Qing said to Little Ming. Then he knocked on the table and picked up the cup. To our youth, to our reunion. To our youth, to our reunion. Li Mao, Sun Jian and the others did the same thing and shouted the same words. Even Lin Ke, who was always aloof, knocked on the cup and picked it up. Kai Zongming glanced at Lu Qing and shouted again, to the champion. After shouting, he raised his head and gulped down the entire bottle. To the champion. His voice echoed as if it was yesterday. Chapter 709. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, they reminisced about the past. It wasn't until 9:00 that the original Songqing University Martial Arts Club members returned to their hotel. Along the way, Li Mao, Sun Jian, and the others, who were already drunk, sang and sang at the top of their lungs. Sometimes, they giggled and chattered non-stop. This drunkard. Lin Hua kicked Sun Jian's calf in annoyance. Kai Zongming also drank a lot. He looked back with a smile and found that the alley was unusually deserted. The scattered pedestrians were scared by the drunkards and quickly disappeared in both directions. An idea came to him, and his eyes flashed with excitement. He stuttered and said to Lu Qing, Qing, come, let's practice. Let me see the strength of a physical invulnerability expert. Lu Qing was speechless for a moment. After a long time, he laughed and said, Talker, you've drunk 2 tails of horse piss. Don't you know how to spell the word death? Drinking can give you courage, but it's not to the extent of flying, right? You bastard, can't you wait for me to finish my sentence? It's rare to have a physical invulnerability expert around me. I want to see how much stronger a physical invulnerability expert is compared to us. Little Ming explained with a sober mind. Let's make it clear. No fire, no ice, no force. No unique skills. And no hitting my face. Yo, you're only thinking about your head and not your butt? Lu Qing couldn't help but tease him. Tomorrow, we're going to participate in the opening ceremony. It's going to be broadcasted. Kai Zongming wiped his hair. Lu Qing nodded seriously. That's true. If there are bruises or hematoma on your face, it won't be good if millions of people see it. But, you can't just focus on your face. It's not a good idea to be pushed up in a wheelchair, right? You've been wanting to hit me for a long time, haven't you? Kai Zongming gasped. Yes. It wasn't Lu Qing who answered. It was the single guys, sober or drunk. A long-awaited crosstalk performance. He muttered to herself. After joking around for a while, Lu Qing, reluctantly, stood in the middle of the alley under the expectation of Lin Hua and the others. Kai Zongming took a deep breath, suppressed his drunkenness, and steadied his steps. He acted as the temporary referee. She blew the whistle and sets out. Begin. Kai Zongming bent his back and staggered his steps forward. His center of gravity swayed back and forth, making it difficult for others to determine where his attack would land. Just as his spine sprung and he was about to throw a punch, he noticed that Lu Qing had lifted his right leg and extended it diagonally, waiting in the air. If things had gone according to plan, I would have tripped and fallen flat on my face. Kai Zhongming's eyes turned cold, and he hurriedly stopped his forward momentum. At this moment, Lu Qing withdrew his right foot and placed his left fist on his waist. Kai Zhongming, who had forcefully changed his direction and hadn't had time to catch his breath, only felt that his opponent's fist was about to burst out. The moment he slowed down and stopped, he couldn't dodge, and he couldn't dodge. He didn't have the burden of being an idol, so he immediately rolled to the side. Lu Qing watched with a smile and didn't chase after him. Bang! Kai Zhongming rolled too quickly and hit a shared bicycle. Crazy! A cyclist who was passing by almost lost his balance. He staggered forward while cursing. How old are you? Still playing a game of rolling on the ground. After cursing, he realized that there were a few drunkards around him. He didn't dare to make a sound, so he stepped on the pedals and hurriedly left. I won't lower myself to the level of a drunkard. You lost, right? Lu Qing put his hands in his pockets and smiled at little Ming. Kai Zhongming was already a little tipsy, so he was a little dizzy from the collision. However, after the shock, he regained his ability to speak fluently. He didn't want to lose with his words. You can't call a deer a horse and turn it upside down. Who said that you lose when you hit a bicycle during a martial arts competition? As a martial artist, it's basic to be observant and alert, said Lu Qing calmly. Kai Zhongming did a carp flip and stood up. Suddenly, he hissed. You didn't move from the beginning to the end. Did he win with just a pose? It's a matter of 2 or 3 moves. What do you mean from the beginning to the end? Lu Qing curled his lips in disdain. Kai Zhongming didn't mind his disdain. He asked curiously, is this the prediction ability of the combination of enemy heart freezing move and God above head? You know it well. Lu Qing nodded, slightly surprised. Nonsense. As the future king of martial arts competition commentary, you still have to do the basics. This is called loving what you do. Kai Zhongming clicked his tongue. At this moment, Wang Dali asked coldly, who's Xing Yi? Everyone burst into laughter. Only Lin Ke didn't react. Maybe he thought the joke was too old, or maybe he didn't understand. After laughing, Li Mao, who was obviously drunk, stepped forward. His eyes lit up. Me too, I'll try. Me too. Me too. He Zi, Wang Dali, and the rest raised their hands. Then we'll take turns. Lu Qing shook his head. With the goal of forcing him to move, Li Mao, Sun Jian, Lin Hua, and the rest took turns. However, they all failed miserably. Bam! He Zi dodged to the side and used force concentration to punch Lu Qing's head. Suddenly, she saw nothing in front of her. Lu Qing lowered his body and squatted in a horse stance. She didn't know when his fist reached out and stopped in front of her abdomen. You can attack fiercely, but you can't break your will. You need to have room for change. Lu Qing stood up slowly and gave her some advice. As a dance stage martial artist, He Zi was the last to take the stage. He Zi was deep in thought. Just as she was about to ask another question, she saw another person stand out. It was Lin Ke, who was still expressionless. Damn, brother-in-law, you're here too. Lu Qing thought, half surprised and half expectant. There's a good show to watch. He Zi retreated to the edge. She hated that she didn't have a bag of popcorn. Li Mao and the rest had similar expressions. Hey, is this the Municipal Administration Bureau? There are 2 people here who want to tear down the street. If it weren't for Lin Ke, Kai Zhongming would have already complained. Now, he could only say it in his heart. Lin Ke didn't say anything. He arched his body slightly and the air around him became heavy. Begin. He Zi almost forgot her duty. Bam! The concrete under Lin Ke's feet shook violently. Like a meteor, he flashed in front of Lu Qing in a flash. There was a strong wind behind him. Lu Qing put out his right palm in advance and clenched his fingers, firmly grasping his brother-in-law's fist. He was about to shake off Lin Kei's accumulated strength when he felt the small muscles on his fist squirming strangely as if they had a life of their own. They forcibly broke free from Lu Cheng's grasp. Bam! 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 Lin Kei stepped forward and threw a series of cannon punches. The lights of the surrounding street lights were distorted as if there were invisible hands pulling them. Lu Qing felt like he was underwater and the pressure on his body was getting stronger and stronger. However, this level of influence had almost no effect on him. He twisted his waist and spread his arms, tearing off layer after layer of adhesive. Bam! Bam! Lin Kei's chain of attacks was tight. His every punch and kick seemed to have been precisely measured. But no matter how hard he tried, Lu Qing was able to defend himself without directly using his supernatural ability. He didn't even move half a step. After a few seconds, Lin Kei retracted his fist and retreated. There weren't many cracks on the ground. Both parties had control. Encountering gods in the void, self-reflection? Lu Qing asked in delight. Brother-in-law has reached this level so quickly? Is this a blessing in disguise? Lin Kei nodded slightly and gave an affirmative answer. Based on the condition of your body, you're at the peak of the inhuman stage. The next step is to search for the path of physical invulnerability, said Lu Qing happily for his brother-in-law. Lin Kei's gaze didn't change. He seemed to be talking to himself. I'll return to the war-torn zones next month. Using life and death as a training ground? Lu Qing nodded slowly and asked in confirmation. Lin Kei shook his head. He put his hands in his pockets and walked towards the exit of the alley. Then, he answered in a low and calm voice, "The answer I want is there." Back at the hotel and entering the elevator, Lu Qing, who was still pondering the true meaning of brother-in-law's words, decided to give up. He was about to ask his wife when He came over and smiled. "Senior, Shaoling forwarded an email to you. It's about an interview program." Eternal Nightfall? Lu Qing thought for a few seconds. She went to the TV station for an internship? Yeah. She majored in editing and directing. Reporter Shu recommended her to the provincial TV station for an internship. She has a good relationship with reporter Shu. This interview program was also arranged by reporter Shu, explained He. All right, I'll check the email. But I don't remember her forwarding it to me, said Lu Qing, recalling the email he had just checked. He fell silent for a moment. Then, she twitched her mouth and said, with her IQ, maybe she really did forward it to the wrong person. You should check again. At this moment, the elevator arrived. Lu Qing logged into his mailbox as he stepped out. He did see a new email, but the sender's name was completely different from Yan Xiaoling's. Lu Qing GK. Is this it? Lu Qing showed it to He with uncertainty. He was stunned for a moment. Then, she called Yan Xiaoling and asked directly, "What's the signature on your email?" It's... Yan Xiaoling suddenly fell silent. Then, she shook her head like a rattledrum. "It's not me, it's not me, it's not me. Oh no, I forgot to change the signature of my middle school student. Senior saw it, he saw it. If it's not you, then who sent that email?" He's face twitched obviously. "I don't know." Yan Xiaoling answered without hesitation. "P.S. I have something to do in the afternoon. The chapter in the evening will be late, around 9 o'clock. Chapter 710. With Lu Cheng's excellent hearing, he could hear the conversation between He and Yan Xiaoling clearly. He almost laughed out loud. Some people were walking comedians, while others were walking comedians. He nodded calmly and said, "Then I'll go back and take a look at the contents of the email. I'll think about it before giving you an answer." "Sorry to trouble you, Senior." He smiled naturally. After entering the room, Lu Qing put aside the email and sent a message to Yen Jika. What do you think your brother means? The girl replied very quickly. Fingers clasped under chin expression, : It should be a new goal and new motivation. Back then, he practiced martial arts crazily to make up for his uncle's regret and lead Songqing University Martial Arts Club to win the championship. For this, he was even willing to pay any price. After achieving his goal, perhaps he lacked motivation. That's my guess. After all, there are almost no people who want to become stronger purely from martial arts. Even if there are, they need other motivations. She said a lot in one breath. Of course, Lu Qing agreed. Yeah, Dragon King is considered to be relatively pure. However, he still needs someone as strong as Warrior Sage to reach his current level. My brother probably found a new meaning in life in the war-torn areas. Yeah, that's most likely the case. Yen Jika nodded slowly. That's not bad. Lu Qing recalled what he had seen and heard in the past and heaved a sigh of relief. Wait until your brother makes the great leap and becomes a physical invulnerability expert. Even in the war-torn areas, he won't be in too much danger. As the god of plagues and calamities, you have no right to say that. Yen Jika sat blankly. Lu Qing could only cover his face and sigh. The next day at 11 a.m., the cars sent by the organizing committee arrived punctually at the main entrance of the hotel. Whether it was intentional or not, Lu Qing was treated alone and sat in a car by himself. The luncheon was held at the historic Chao Mu Lu in Songqing. It was a buffet style. As soon as he stepped into the main hall, Lu Qing saw the president of the University Martial Arts Federation, Mr. Fang Jinyu, the principal of Songqing University, his teacher's good friend, Mr. Dong, whose full name was unknown, and the mayor of Songqing University. You're a good student of Songqing University is here. The mayor of Songqing pointed at Lu Qing and smiled at Principal Dong. Lu Qing and the rest stepped forward and greeted, "Hello, Principal Dong." Then, they greeted Mr. Fang Jinyu and the others separately. No matter what, they still had to be polite. After some pleasantries, Principal Dong looked at Lu Qing and chuckled. Your master often says in front of me that he wants to train you, give you setbacks, and give you a failed education, but it seems that he has never succeeded. What the hell? Master actually has such a sinister mind. Lu Qing had never expected this. He was both surprised and amused at the same time. However, his expression did not change. He only smiled and defended his master's dignity. Headmaster Dong, you can't say that. My most important step indeed came from a setback. Headmaster Dong smiled and nodded. Zhang Luo has taken in a good disciple. In Moshang City, Geezer Shi was happily drinking wine and listening to a play. Suddenly, a sentence flashed past his ears. Life is the most bitter of all. Bad friends, bad disciples. Geezer Shi smacked his lips and nodded to himself. That makes a lot of sense. On the topic of his master, Lu Qing, Headmaster Dong, and the other middle-aged and elderly people started chatting. Before they knew it, they had formed a circle, and from time to time, they would receive drinks, cakes, and snacks from the waiters passing by. I'll go get some food first. After a while, Lu Qing heard his stomach rumbling softly. He retreated with a smile. At this time, he found that some of Kai Zongming and the others were eating, some were talking to the directors of the local martialist association, the coaches and teachers of other universities, and some were chatting with other guests and contestant representatives. Everyone had their own circle. Only Lin Kei was standing at the edge of the balcony with a tray in hand. He closed the door to the balcony, isolating himself from the hustle and bustle of the place. As expected of a man who is not affected by the environment. Lu Qing laughed and picked up the food. He planned to fill a plate and then go to the balcony to chat with his brother-in-law about the war-torn zones. He was about to continue when a familiar figure appeared in front of him. It was reporter Shu Roy, wearing an evening gown that exposed her fair shoulders. What a coincidence. Lu Qing casually greeted her. Shu Roy smiled and said, "It's not really a coincidence. I came all the way here from Huahai. I even asked Xiaoling to forward an email to you. You're not in Songqing? Lu Qing asked, slightly surprised. She seemed to be right. Shu Rui wrinkled her nose and said, yeah, I went there on impulse. Huahai TV is one of the biggest channels in the country. Lu Qing didn't ask further. He changed the topic and said, I've seen your program proposal. It's pretty interesting. But are you sure you want me? The program Shu Rui wanted to do was called Walking into the Physical Invulnerability Stage. It wasn't limited to competitions, battles, interviews, and chats. Instead, it would show the daily lives of physical invulnerability experts. It would allow the audience to see how the experts lived their lives every day. For most people, this was a topic that was very interesting and could arouse curiosity. Just like in ancient times, farmers would imagine that the emperor used a golden carrying pole. The audience could also use this to fulfill their dreams of physical invulnerability. Why do you say that? I think you're great. You had the bearing of a great general when you were interviewed. Shu Rui frowned, puzzled. What I mean is that my daily life is boring, Lu Qing answered half honestly and half self-deprecatingly. No, trust me. People nowadays are so empty that they want to watch others eat and sleep. Not to mention the daily life of a physical invulnerability expert. No matter how boring it is, there will be people watching. Shu Rui waved her hand confidently. Then she said earnestly, I plan to find 10 physical invulnerability experts in the first season. The TV station does have some connections, but I'm afraid that other experts won't be willing to accept because they think I'm unreliable. If you're the model, they won't be so resistant when they see that Lu Qing is also on the show. Lu Qing pondered for a moment and said, all right. Anyway, I've reminded you. You can contact the Longhu External Affairs team and ask them to find my assistant. Okay. Shu Rui nodded excitedly. Then she smiled and said, well, find my assistant. You're acting like a big shot now. Lu Qing laughed and pointed to the balcony. I have something to do. I'll go over first. Shu Rui followed his finger and replied with a smile, okay. When Lu Qing turned around, she stood on her tiptoes and looked at the balcony. She muttered to herself, that king of awkward silence is here too. At 7:00 p.m., the opening ceremony of the new University Martial Arts Competition Finals. After Mr. Fang Jinyu, the president of the Federation, and Principal Dong of Songqing University finished their speeches, the host took a deep breath and raised her voice. Next, let's welcome a group of heavyweight guests. Let's welcome. Before she could finish her sentence, she was drowned out by the roar of the audience. Lu Qing. Then there was another round of shouting. Lin K. The audience shouted one by one, just like when they introduced the team members on the home broadcast. In the end, they said in unison, Songqing University, Songqing University. Champion, champion. Backstage, Lu Qing and the rest heard it. It was as if they had returned to the hot-blooded days of the past. Their bodies couldn't help but tremble slightly. You haven't forgotten us yet. Little Ming pretended to be calm and said. Are you happy? Are you touched? Lu Qing asked in amusement. Kai Zhongming was silent for a few seconds, no longer as relaxed as before. He took a deep breath and said, touched. As soon as he said that, Lin Hua, He Zi and the rest couldn't help but cry out in a low voice. Songqing University, Songqing University. Champion, champion. Lu Qing controlled his emotions and glanced at his brother-in-law, only to find that he had already looked to the side. They strode forward and came to the stage in a single file, which attracted more enthusiastic cheers. After calming down, the host smiled brightly and said, they can be said to be the most legendary team in the history of the University Martial Arts Competition. It only took them 2 years to go from being at the bottom with no hope to winning the trophy. Now, there is still a legend among them. They already have a mighty one with physical invulnerability. Maybe there will be more in the future. They are the pride of Songcheng and Songcheng University. They are the champions 3 years ago, all the members of Songcheng University Martial Arts Club. In the aftermath of the champion, the host walked to Lu Cheng and said with a smile, "I'll interview them one by one. Lu Cheng, you are one of the most successful people in the university martial arts circle. You are the idol and role model of many people. What do you want to say to your juniors?" Lu Cheng took the microphone and recalled for a few seconds. In this path, in addition to relying on one's own efforts, opportunities are also important. I don't want to dampen your enthusiasm. I just want to introduce the situation of the martial arts circle seriously. If you want to walk the path of martial arts, without good guidance, perseverance, and good martial arts, only 1 or 2 out of 10 people can hope to reach the professional 9th pin. Even if you have those, a large number of people will be eliminated. They can only use the amateur level as a stepping stone to get a job. They may have no problem with food and clothing, but there is not much difference between them and the others. When you reach the professional 9th pin, you can feel the transcendental feeling of a martial artist and show off your masculinity in front of girls. Your income is almost the middle class, but there is limited room for improvement unless you reach the Dan stage. From the professional 9th pin to the Dan stage, even if you have good martial arts, only 1 or 2 out of 10 people can reach the Dan stage. Beyond that, the inhuman stage is another hurdle, and those who can make the great leap are few and far between. This is the general situation. If you really want to walk this path, you should understand that you are most likely to reach the amateur 2nd or 3rd pin, 4th or 5th pin. If you don't have the cultural knowledge to reach the standard, you can only develop in a small city, which is definitely not what you expect. Okay, I've been long-winded for a long time. I'll say one last thing. Making a decision without thinking about anything is not courage, it is rashness. When you seriously consider the difficulties and how to deal with the future, you still do it without hesitation. That is a real warrior. A real martial artist. This is what I want to say. Chapter 7:11. To the audience, Lu Cheng's words didn't carry the color of dreams, glory, or passion they had expected. Instead, it was like a bucket of cold water that exposed the bare reality that many people didn't want to consider. The path of martial arts was cruel and hopeless most of the time. After such a description, the definition of a true martial artist and true warrior became more and more palpitating, admirable, and desirable. Although they might not be able to do it themselves, they would definitely worship those who could. Clap, clap, clap. At first, the applause was weak, sporadic, and scattered, then loud, surging, and orderly. Respect to a true warrior. Respect to a true martial artist. The host listened attentively and felt a little emotional. When the applause died down, she smiled at Lu Cheng and said, "Very sincere and honest words. I believe this is what you've experienced and heard on your journey. Thank you for your speech." At this point, she took advantage of the time and looked at Lin Kei beside her. "Lin Kei, what about you? What do you have to say to everyone?" Lin Kei's expression didn't change. His eyes were deep and indifferent. After a few seconds, he said, "Good luck." And then? "Don't tell me that's all." The host waited for a long time before realizing that there was no follow-up. She was both amused and surprised. After a while, she said, "Thank you. Thank you, Lin Kei, for your blessings. God damn it, good luck." No wonder he's the king of awkward silence. Shu Rui, who was sitting in the press box, hammered her thigh and tried her best not to laugh out loud. "Frankly speaking, it's so funny when I'm not the one interviewing Lin Kei." The host strengthened her mental state and turned to Kai Zhongming. "As a former club president, what do you want to say to your juniors?" Little Ming took the microphone and said with a smile, "Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm the professional 9th pin with limited room for improvement and no future." Pfft. His humorous self-mockery attracted a lot of laughter. The atmosphere instantly became lively. Kai Zhongming's mind was quick. He recalled the script in his mind and said without stuttering, "Fortunately, I didn't give up on classes while I was participating in the special training of the martial arts club. My grades weren't outstanding, but I didn't fail many subjects. Well, almost. Anyway, I successfully got my diploma and degree. Of course, my current job has nothing to do with my major." "Talker, are you going to perform a stand-up comedy on the spot?" Lu Cheng, who was almost amused by the turn of events, cursed silently. Kai Zhongming said with a smile, "That's not what I really want to say. To be able to do what I want to do the most in the last years of my life, to put my heart and soul into it, to endure the torture, and to give up my comfort, is something that I can remember for the rest of my life. It's a past that I can touch my chest and say I don't regret. While I'm still young, while I still have dreams, and while the pressure of life hasn't come yet, why not fight hard? If you don't try, how do you know you can't do it?" What followed was a normal speech. The host calmed down and thanked Little Ming sincerely. Then, he started interviewing Li Mao, Sun Jian, and the others one by one. At the end of this process, Lu Cheng and his team returned backstage amidst shouts of "Songqing University" and "Champion, Champion" from the audience. "Talker, I thought you would carry on with your crosstalk to the end." Lu Cheng took out his phone and teased Little Ming. Kai Zhongming curled his lips and said, "Do I look like the kind of person who talks big regardless of the situation?" "You do." He Zi, Wang Dali, and the others answered in unison. "I despise your hypocritical hearts." Kai Zhongming made the shape of a gun with his hands and pointed downwards. Without waiting for the others to speak, he changed the topic. "Cheng, when did you become so eloquent? You can already speak at length." "As the saying goes, preparedness leads to success, and unpreparedness leads to failure," replied Lu Cheng with a smile. At the same time, he took out a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "When I received the call from the organizing committee, I was thinking about what to say and how to say it. I specially made a draft and revised it a few times. He even rehearsed it in front of his little fairy. After that, he waited for Talker's exclamation. Instead, Kai Zhongming said disdainfully, "You even made your own draft? The real big shots let their secretaries and assistants do it. At most, it's just a final review. You tell me, should I despise you or should I despise you?" "Get lost," replied Lu Cheng concisely. After the opening ceremony, everyone went back to their own places. It was like memories always had an end. On the third morning after returning to Huacheng, Lu Cheng saw Shu Rui and her team as soon as he stepped into the Longhu Club. "Please bear with us for the next week." Shu Rui, who was no longer constrained by her professional attire, extended her hand with a smile. Lu Cheng reached out and shook her hand. He nodded with a smile. "Then let's start. Let's go to the place where I do my morning exercises. We'll discuss the details with my assistant." "Okay, just pretend we don't exist." Shu Rui revealed her only dimple. After that, she gestured for the camera to slowly move from the scene outside to Lu Cheng, who was walking slowly. The recording of the daily routine started now. At the same time, she deliberately said in a documentary tone, "The sky is still dark and the surroundings are quiet. Lu Cheng has already arrived at the Longhu Club, just like every other day. This is the place where he does his morning exercises every day. You can clearly see traces of ice and fire." According to the staff of the Longhu Club, unless there is serious damage, it is usually repaired and replaced once a week. We can't show the details of his morning exercises. We can only film a few actions. This is the physical invulnerability restaurant that many friends and I are curious about. Clean, tidy, and quiet. That's my first impression. You can see that there are delicious breakfasts from all over the country. This is Guangnan's rice noodle roll. This is Juku's hot dry noodles. This is Huahai's pang pan. This is Beijing's soybean juice. Hey, who would like to drink this? See? This is the appetite of a physical invulnerability expert. I really don't understand how their stomachs can hold so much food. But looking at Lu Cheng eating, I have a special appetite. I feel that everything is delicious. Even I'm hungry. This is the world-famous volcano laboratory. Okay, that's all we can film. The rest is confidential. And the room where Lu Qing trains is not a place where ordinary people can survive. Even if I could, the camera wouldn't be able to take it. 11 a.m. Lu Qing returned to his exclusive resting room. It's very spacious, even more spacious than my place. After filming the surroundings, Shu Rui sat on the single-seater sofa beside Lu Qing. She asked in a chatting tone, "Why did you choose this time to rest?" Lu Qing glanced at her and answered calmly, "It's a secret." "Are you possessed by Lin Ke?" Shu Rui was almost at a loss for words. Lu Qing smiled and said calmly, "I'm just kidding. This is the time I agreed to chat with my girlfriend." It was supposed to be a video call, but because Ku felt that it was too embarrassing to flirt in front of the camera, she had to cancel it this week. Of course, as someone who wasn't very thick-skinned, he also felt the same way. "I understand. She's studying abroad," Shu Rui said in realization. Lu Qing didn't hide the fact that he had a girlfriend at all, leaving no room for imagination. After that, Shu Rui stopped interviewing and returned the daily routine to Lu Qing. She didn't want to steal the limelight. Lu Qing picked up his phone and sent an emoji of covering his face and sighing. "It's so uncomfortable." "Who asked you to agree on a whim?" Gloating expression, Yenjika said. "And it's a beautiful reporter. I thought it would be similar to the martial arts club program she did in the past." Sighing expression, Lu Qing said, "After a few days, she'll understand that there's no value in filming me." "My daily life," Yenjika sent an emoji of covering her mouth and laughing. "That's not necessarily the case. You can gather your daily life outside of your daily life into this week. At least it will look richer. My daily life outside of my daily life is to check out the delicacies and interesting places, waiting for your inspection." Lu Qing gradually forgot that he was being filmed. His lips curled up into a smile. After a round of discussion, Yenjika sent an emoji of making the final decision. "Let's do that." A few days later, Shu Rui smelled the aroma of the salted crispy chicken. She was a little confused and amused. "Are we going to become a food show soon? Let's call it, The Mighty One of Physical Invulnerability brings you to experience the delicacies of watching. Lu Qing recommends once a day." Lu Qing spread his hands and replied calmly, "This is my daily life. I hope other mighty ones with physical invulnerability are different from you." Shu Rui pretended to look up at the sky and sigh. "Definitely." Lu Qing smiled and said seriously, "There are people who are more boring than me." Just as he finished his sentence, he added silently, "For example, the Dragon King." Chapter 712. Shu Rui didn't have thought steal, so she couldn't hear Lu Cheng's unspoken criticism. Her dimples deepened as she laughed at Lu Cheng's words. "You're humorous as usual." She didn't ask questions like "really?" or "who?" in case Lu Qing couldn't answer. It would be a grave sin if it caused a conflict between the two mighty ones. At this moment, the boss came over with his signature salted crispy chicken and other dishes. He glanced at the cameras, lights, and other equipment and smiled like a blooming flower. Not only was the food generous, but he was also very attentive. Shu Rui finally managed to get rid of him. She smiled at Lu Qing and said, "You can ask him for advertising fees later. He's recommended by the heavenly son of the era and the future titled Mighty One." "You make it sound like a food show." Lu Qing picked up his chopsticks and picked up a piece of salted crispy chicken. Shu Rui smiled. Her thoughts wandered. "When our show airs, you'll probably be specially hired as a gourmet. Well, when you get the title of king, you'll probably be the food king." Lu Qing subconsciously made a self-deprecating remark. "Is this my title of king? If I meet someone who likes to mix 2 and 3 tones, wouldn't I become the king of sh*t? Don't talk about this at dinner." Shu Rui's mouth twitched. Then she said excitedly, you said it yourself. I believe people nowadays don't lack the spirit for pranks. When the show airs, this title will follow you closely. Trouble comes from the mouth. Lu Qing almost gasped. He quickly asked, can you cut this part? Shu Rui pretended to be hesitant. If you insist. If she really ignored the wishes of a physical invulnerability expert, the TV station building might be flattened one day. I insist, Lu Qing answered without hesitation. All right. Shu Rui's eyes lit up. She took a small bite of the meat and said with great interest, have you ever thought about the title of king? I've seen a lot of discussions online. They all say that since the sky-shaking roar is a divine beast, you can be called the king of beasts. Can't you just use the first word? Lu Qing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Images of slamming the table and the like flashed through his mind. How the hell am I like the Beast King? The Deity King was more like it. Speaking of which, I have a pretty good nickname among the foreign powerhouses, King of Calamity. Why couldn't the title of king be written in 4 words? Shu Rui resisted the urge to continue discussing this topic and returned the focus of the show to Lu Qing. She began filming his daily life as if they didn't exist. She watched as he glanced at his phone from time to time while eating. Later on, I can add a sentence here. Dangerous habits that are not good for digestion. Children, please do not imitate them. For the next few days, the recording of the show went very smoothly. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the farewell scene. In front of the camera, Shu Rui reached out and shook Lu Qing's hand. Thank you so much for your cooperation this week. Sorry for bothering you. Nothing, replied Lu Qing politely. Well, finally, I've always wanted to ask you something. Lu Qing, do you feel that your daily schedule is like that of a robot, running according to a fixed plan, precise, regular, and very, very restrained? Shu Rui couldn't help but ask. Lu Qing thought for a moment and said, the path of physical invulnerability can't be walked without restraint. No. What I mean is, other than the daily training, the few physical invulnerability mighty ones I've come into contact with all have rich and varied, spare time lives. As for you, well, it's not that the internet isn't interesting. It's just that even when you're playing games, reading novels, or browsing Weibo, you give people the feeling that you're restraining yourself and restraining your desires. You lack the expression of your emotions and the interaction of your social circle. Shu Rui's description wasn't accurate enough. In short, he wasn't lonely. Compared to when he was in university, he was more and more restrained and introverted. It's all right. I usually interact with my teammates. As for friends, they're all over the place and not by my side, replied Lu Qing with a smile. I seem to smell a faint sense of loss. That's right. At the level of physical invulnerability, new friends are probably in the same social circle or at the same level. It's very rare, let alone in the same city. Shu Rui nodded thoughtfully. Then, her single dimple appeared. Well, as you grow up, your friends will only get fewer and fewer. All right, that's the end of the program. Thank you again for your cooperation. Oh right, are you going to sign up for the Warrior Sage battle at the beginning of May? After the Master Battle, you haven't participated in any title matches. You've missed the King and Super Class matches consecutively. Lu Qing smiled and nodded slightly. I will. After conserving for so long, all that's left is the Warrior Sage battle. The National University Martial Arts competitions came to an end. Songqing University once again entered the top 4 and maintained their position in the circle. May 3rd, in the villa at Xiepei Lake. Lu Qing sat on the sofa with the big backpack beside him. He held the remote control in his hand and seemed to be waiting for something while watching a TV program idly. Welcome to the preview of the Warrior Sage battle. In the live broadcast room on the screen, the host and guest commentator He Xiaowei were talking about highlights from time to time. It's the beginning of May again. It's time for the new Warrior Sage battle. Xiaowei, I heard that the Martial Artist Association is planning a reform. They're going to change the 5 major title matches from annual to biannual and stagger them. Yeah, I heard the news. After all, there are more and more such matches and they're running out of time. Physical and vulnerability experts are also starting to selectively participate. It's better to increase the number of years and increase the value of the titles. The bald poison milk hierarch, He Xiaowei, replied with a smile. However, they'll only start in the year after next year at the earliest. Ever since he changed his Weibo name and shaved off all the hair on his head, he felt that his career was getting better and better. Recently, he had even become a special guest on one of the top 3 TV stations in the country. Valuable. That's a good word. The host took this opportunity to start the conversation. Speaking of valuable, among the 5 major titles, the earliest ones, Warrior Sage and King, are still the most valuable and valued. They're similar to ancient martial arts competitions and each have a sense of history. Among them, the rules of the Warrior Sage battle are the simplest. It's a single elimination round to determine the mighty one who can challenge the previous Warrior Sage. Among them, the mighty one with a title will be seated. The 16 Inhumans who won the first round and the preliminaries will fight as mentors. If there are less than 16 titled mighty ones, the physical and vulnerability experts will choose the martial artist closest to that level. Generally, it's based on performance in the past year. Some will age and some will regress. The rest of the physical and vulnerability experts will fight in pairs. In the second round, the titles won't touch. If there's a bye, the top 32 will be decided. After that, there will be no restrictions. After the host finished speaking, He Xiaowei continued. Excluding Warrior Sage, Qian Donglu, there are a total of 13 titled mighty ones who signed up this year. All of them are still active in professional competitions. As for the rest, most of them are old and cherishing their reputation, so they don't want to appear again. The 13 titled experts are Dragon King, Chen Qitao, Kiran Dong Baxian, Supreme Class Ji Hai, Path Sword, Wu Qiao, Queen of Thought, Fei Dan, Divine Monk, Fa Yuan, Spear King, Huang Ku, Empress Luo, and Ning Zitong, God-slaying Saber Lu Yongyuan, Heaven's Equal Sword, Feng Ji, Long Dam that Protects the Sea, Ma Xinghong, and Lion King, Shang Yud. The physical and vulnerability experts chose the ones with the best performances last year, who are closest to this level, but don't have a title yet, are Living Buddha Shi Shan, Evening Light Liang Yifan, and the Clown Gu Jianxi. Hehe, speaking of which, I'm impressed. The clown has displayed the strength and drive to compete for titles in the past year. He even made Spear King Old Man go crazy. This means that the Weiwei Club has 2 superclass mighty ones. They're no longer in the middle of the pack. It's a pity that both Deadly Chill Xian Xiaoya and Black and White Divine Saber Shiyue Jian are still lacking. If only Lu Qing had stayed back then, they would have been qualified to compete with Daxing Temple and Shushan Study for the top 3. The host listened quietly and chuckled. I don't know if you're praising the Weiwei Club or feeling sorry for them. I don't think they want to be praised by me, said He Xiaowei in an open-minded manner, as though he had already accepted his fate. That's right. Everyone knows the name of Toxic Healer. The host didn't tease him any further and returned to the topic. These are the official 16 seeds. Next are the 8 challengers that our TV station and our program team have selected. They are the 8 most promising mighty ones to win the right to challenge for the Warrior Sage title. Regardless of their age, they have all displayed enough strength in the past 12 months. Next, let's look at the big screen. First, Dragon King. Without a doubt, he's the Dragon King. As one of the legendary twins and the winner of 18 titles, does he need any other reason? Second, Kiran Dong Baxian. His claim to be one of the top 3 is gaining more and more recognition. However, his focus is probably on defending the title of Kiran. Third, Supreme Class Ji Hai. He's the most popular young mighty one in the past 3 years. He has already won 2 titles and is currently in good condition. He's looking forward to a breakthrough. Fourth, Taoist Sword Wu Qiao. His contemporaries, Divine Monk Fa Yuan, and the rest have all started to decline. He's the only one who's still at his peak. It's rare. He's a strong contender in every title battle. Furthermore, even now, he's ranked in the top 3 in terms of the number of titles he's won. 5th, God-slaying saber Lu Yongyuan. He created his own saber technique and improved further. His standard is obvious to all. He still has the habit of failing miserably in unexpected situations, but please believe in his performance when facing strong opponents. 6th, Heavens equals Sword Feng Ji. As the number 1 mighty one in Kongtong School, his physical invulnerability career overlaps with that of Dragon King and Warrior Sage. He's firmly suppressed by them and his strength is always underestimated. However, even so, he still managed to win the title of Master once in the past 10 years. He's currently at the peak of the 3 tiers of physical invulnerability, mental strength, and experience. 7th, late bloomer Liang Yifan. He's a mighty one who's slowly matured. In the past 10 title battles, he's entered the top 4 times and won the right to challenge once. He's getting closer and closer to winning the first title. 8th, Clown Gu Jianxi. His growth rate is astonishing. He entered the Supreme Class round-robin competition at the beginning of the year and was immediately designated as first pin. Almost everyone believes that it's only a matter of time before he wins the title. These 8 are the mighty ones among the mighty ones in this battle of Warrior Sage. At this point, Lu Qing received a message. He switched off the TV with a click of his finger. Then, he picked up his luggage and typed with one hand. Let's go. Clang. The door of the villa opened and closed. Lu Qing strode out. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.